Okay, everyone, give you an initial welcome here to the historic Exeter Town Hall and the 757th broadcast of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Bettina. We are not live yet, or we'll be talking about this. I'd like to go over some of the instructions, if you would please. And you'll see that the print is rather small. To our live audience, our show is just 1 hour long, so please follow these instructions. Please participate by asking brief and to-the-point questions of our panel of speakers, co-hosts. Well, Ben's going to be back as the producer today, so you can ask your questions if you want, but please concentrate on our panel. This is an over-the-air, FCC-regulated broadcast from Queen's English only, please. No, but this is not internet radio, so no swearing. When you see the applaud sign on the screen, that's about it. Really good. Uh-oh. Well, anyway, that's a really good little thing on there. There's that. A little more enthusiasm. Good afternoon and welcome to the 757th edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Bettina, here on WOON 1240 AM and 99.3 FM, and our 11th year on the air. I'm Paul, and today we're broadcasting live from the historic Exeter Town Hall in Exeter, New Hampshire, and it's the 2018 Exeter UFO Festival and the 53rd anniversary of this 1965 incident at Exeter. Distinguished panel, let's acknowledge the organizers of the Exeter UFO Festival, which raises funds for children's charities here in southeastern New Hampshire. The Exeter Area Kiwanis Club and the invaluable assistance of Seacoast Saucers of New England and Granite Sky Services. I'm going to pass the mic down very quickly after the speakers will introduce themselves, and we will continue from there. I will tell you, we didn't get to this before. There's a mic here for anyone from the audience who would like to ask a question, and we'll introduce the speakers, and then they're very welcome to come up and begin questions. We also have questions from listeners from all over the world, which we will state if no one has the mic. So, why don't we begin with Jennifer Stein?
Hello, I am Jennifer Stein. I just recently presented on Göbekli Tepe, an ancient site in Turkey, and I'm very, very pleased to be here. I'll pass the mic.
Hi, I'm Mike Stevens from Granite Sky, and I presented earlier on People Not Heard. Hi, I'm Bob Torrio, and I presented on Walt Disney and their connection with aliens and UFOs.
Hello, and I'm Shane Stairway, regular guest host on the show Behind the Paranormal, and I'll be presenting on parasitic life forms for you out there.
My name is Mark Antonio. I'm the Chief Photo Video Analyst for the Mutual UFO Network. And I did a presentation yesterday on exoplanets and the possibility of alien life.
Good afternoon. I'm Hugh Robbins. I'm an investigative writer, and the talk I'll be giving after our broadcast will be on the deaths of key writers, journalists, and authors, and whether or not there was any foul play involved.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Martin, and I am UFON's Director of Experiencer Research, and I'm on the Board of Directors and a research consultant to the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for research into extraterrestrial encounters. I'm also the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, whose abduction in 1961 was made public in 1965, and my presentation yesterday was on my investigation of their case and research on their archival records.
Good afternoon. I am Chuck Credo. I'm one of the co-founders of Seacoast Saucers. I'm also the founder of the Galileo Reviews. And we gave a speech yesterday on commonalities, synchronicities, and modern day contact, and what we can learn from experiencers today. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Hello, I'm Valerie LaFaso. I'm an empathic medium, an experiencer, an author, and the co-founder of Seacoast Authors of New England, along with Chuck.
Okay, thank you all. Let's begin with our questions. If anyone has a question from the audience, please walk up to the mic there. It's right on the right. But in the meantime, let's take one. This is to Kathleen Harvey. This is from Tasha from Wichita Falls, Texas. And Tasha asks, why do you feel that the Betty and Barney Hill case got such publicity? And did Betty and Barney Hill ever experience any more contacts? Yeah.
Well, I think that there are many reasons why the Hill case got a lot of publicity. First of all, Betty and Barney did not come forward initially. They had a scientific investigation of their events. Many of the scientists who did the investigation believed it was real. Betty and Barney were credible people. She was a social worker for the state of New Hampshire. He worked for the post office, but he was also very active in the state of New Hampshire in the civil rights movement and through the Rockingham County Community Action Program that he and Betty helped to set up on a committee. And he received an award from Sergeant Shriver for the good work he did. He was also appointed to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission State Advisory Committee. So they were upstanding people in the community, credible people who underwent a scientific investigation, did not want to go public with their events. It was brought to the public as the result of a violation of confidentiality. Then they agreed to allow John G. Fuller, who was a very well-known author and investigator, to write their book. I think that's another reason. Dr. Benjamin Simon, the doctor who did their hypnosis separately, over a period of 6 months, and imposed amnesia at the end of each session so that they could not compare notes. And also because some of their sessions were so traumatic that he did not want them to be further traumatized by these memories. So there is a lot that makes their case very credible, including physical evidence that was scientifically investigated. It was the first known case in the United States as well. And the first brought forth publicly around the world. It was a bestseller around the world, and the movie in 1975, The UFO Incident, starring James Earl Jones and Estelle Parsons, appeared on network television. It was the movie of the week. So I think there are many reasons why this case received so much publicity. In answer to your question about whether or not they had further encounters, they certainly did have sightings after that. And Betty took part in an experiment with a team of scientists to try to call in UFOs. And she was somewhat successful in doing that after a period of about 4 months of trying it nightly. And so they did have that kind of contact that was documented. Betty, I do believe, also had other encounters, you might want to call them abductions. She did not remember a lot about it. She did not want to admit to it because of the criticism that was heaped upon her. And when other experiencers were coming forward with their stories, or they were being revealed to the public just by the facts, such as in the Travis Walton case, where he was missing for 5 days. So that was brought forth to the media. Criticism was heaped upon those people. There were attempts made to discredit them and to destroy their lives, to destroy their careers by certain disinformants. And so that was another reason not to come forward. with the information about further contact.
Thank you, Kathy. We have a question from an audience member. You just step up to the mic.
Yes,
Will you close to the mic, please?
yesterday
Thank you.
morning, in the first session of the day, Valerie Lopasso and Chuck Credo, among the concepts that they shared, made a reference to how fear holds us back from opening up. And today, for me, as I listened to Mike Stevens speak in the first segment, and I heard the comments that Peter Rogers made afterwards, I was thinking more about how the entire subject that we're here to address opens things up to accepting our oneness, and thinking about how fear seems to be one of the principal things keeping human beings from opening up to looking at oneness in a new way. I would invite any of the speakers I named, maybe Valerie and Mike, Chuck, and Peter, to whoever refers to. How does, what do you feel about how facing fear maybe makes us stronger, opens us up more to more possibilities in welcoming oneness?
Okay, we'll start with Valerie LaFosse.
Sure. Fear, that's, a very touchy subject for me personally. I hate fear, but I'm filled with it at all times. I've had my own issues, I mentioned an experience with my father. It's very personal. My father's not with me anymore. He's so dear to my heart that it makes it even more difficult to talk about, to have that possibility of somebody ridiculing it. And I did try to overcome my fear and put myself forward one time recently, and I actually had my story shot down before I could even say what it was. I had somebody who's completely disregarded it, and it was very hurtful to me. So it's really hard when things like that happen to want to then go back and do it again and take that chance, when things like that happen. So anytime anybody does share their story, I just give them a huge applause for getting through that fear that I can't seem to overcome at this point in my life.
And Charles Credo.
Yeah, so yesterday we shared a few stories, and one particular story had to do with a young lady who had started to have this contact. She was becoming more spiritual, and then all of a sudden she's in this place where she's had all these experiences, and she pulls over the car and hears this woman scream. She gets out of the car, but she doesn't become reactive. And by reactive, I mean immediately reacting to the circumstance at hand. She doesn't become fearful, thinking someone's going to attack her or somebody's being killed. Instead, she lets go of the fear, and she looks around, and there's absolutely no one there, and no reason why anybody's screaming. There's no reason why she should have heard that. And she later said that she received a message that that was their way, meaning the visitors, whether you want to call them aliens, the others, whatever, ETs, of testing her. And that led to her having so many more experiences over time. But she's not the only person to talk about how fear impacted us. We talked a little bit yesterday about how it is everybody wants to have an experience, but nobody wants to have to deal with the fear associated with that. How many times have we said we wanted to do something? A lot of people say they want to sky jump, but it isn't until they get to the top of the plane ready to jump out that they're confronted with the feelings that are involved with jumping out of the plane. I've heard countless stories, and I would ask anybody else on the panel to talk a little bit about stories that might be reminiscent of fear and how they got in the way of experiences. But one thing that we saw as a commonality with a lot of people that claim to be experiencers is fear is an obstacle that can get in the way of having a true experience. So I would challenge anybody here to think of a time in your life in which you wanted to do something so bad and you had to overcome that fear, and what came out of shedding that fear. The great examples that come out of anything in life. And sometimes I think that, I just know the stories that people have shared with us are about shedding the fear, because it clouds our judgment, it clouds how we see life, and it impacts all of the beauty that we can have. So that would be my answer to your question.
It's a wonderful question, an important one. All fear, if we take it down to the baseline, is fear of the unknown. Am I going to get sick and get cancer? Are my kids going to turn out okay? Or is the country going to go to war? Am I going to fall in love? Is there going to be money left in the Social Security system by the time I need it? If there's one fear, could be boiled down to be more emblematic of fear of the unknown. It probably, as good as any, is the classic alien abduction experience. Nothing in our Western culture, our Judeo-Christian traditions prepares us for this. A natural, healthy reaction is certainly, I'm scared, I don't know what's happening. A lot of it has to do with attitude, and is the glass half full, is the glass half empty? At the same time, talk is cheap, and it's easy for somebody to talk platitudes about it. One of the most invaluable things about a good support group, working with an investigator who really is a humanist and tuned into your needs and not just seeing you as another case or a bug on the wall that they're getting information for their next talk or book, or a therapist, or a loving family, or a good relationship with somebody you can simply talk about and accept these things. You can get to the point where you still have fear, but it doesn't have you. For me, a great model was my late sister Helen, who brought me into this work. To say overnight would be an understatement. Within a matter of minutes, sharing with me childhood memories of being taken, sharing those memories more than 40 years ago. My life changed instantaneously in a way. And years after that, when Bud Hopkins started to run what arguably is the first UFO abduction support group, she was a member, and valued it very much. I got to attend meetings because I was Bud's assistant, and what I observed over a relatively lively and not terribly long period of time was Helen and other people getting to the point of, I can hardly believe this, but this thing that I think about every day, that has been running my life to a degree, I now see it's a real thing. It happens. It happens to other people. It happens to me. And guess what? I accept that. It might even happen again to me in my life, but that doesn't mean I'm going to not pursue my dreams, or not fall in love, or not have fun, and not even, have fun at their expense. The hell with them, whether they're good or bad, it shook me up. And I'm going on with my life, and I'll be there to support other people.
Thank you, Peter Robbins. I know that Shane Seaway had a comment.
Yeah, so what I want to say about fear is, well, first of all, one of my specialties is dealing with parasitic life forms that attach themselves to people or attack people. And what I've been able to deduce after over 30 years is their ultimate goal is to get you to the state of fear. And the reason for that, I believe, is to hurt individual spiritual growth, and as well as all of us as a whole. That is their goal, to get us to the point of fear and to hold us down from real growth. And Mike Stevens?
Fear's a funny thing, and it really depends on how we want to look at it. What most of us consider and call fear is more of a worry. There's actually, in my opinion, something instinctual fear, something that we react to a situation because we're instinctually sense we're in danger. And I think a lot of that comes into play as well, but I just want to make that differential.
Thank you, Mike Stevens. Jennifer Scott.
I have a little acronym I use for myself in self-coaching that I'll just share with the listening audience and you hear. It's FEAR. It's false evidence appearing real. When I am struck by fear, I acknowledge it, pay attention to it, because it might be self-preservation, but in many cases it's not. It's my perception of my reality that's stopping me in my tracks. So once I've evaluated my safety and my emotional safety, then I try to coach myself forward, saying this really might be just false evidence appearing real. I think we all have to be our own coaches in life, because few of us have them. And fear,
that's, a very touchy subject for me personally. I hate fear, but I'm filled with it at all times. I've had my own issues. I mentioned an experience with my father. It's very personal. My father's not with me anymore. He's so dear to my heart that it makes it even more difficult to talk about, to have that possibility of somebody ridiculing it. And I did try to overcome my fear and put myself forward one time recently, and I actually had my story shot down before I could even say what it was. I had somebody who's completely disregard it, and it was very hurtful to me. So it's really hard when things like that happen to want to then go back and do it again and take that chance, when things like that happen. So anytime anybody does share their story, I just give them a huge applause for getting through that fear that I can't seem to overcome at this point in my life.
And Charles Credo?
Yeah, so yesterday we shared a few stories, and one in particular story had to do with a young lady who had started to have this contact. She was becoming more spiritual, and then all of a sudden she's in this place where she's had all these experiences, and she pulls over the car and hears this woman scream. She gets out of the car, but she doesn't become reactive. And by reactive, I mean immediately reacting to the circumstance at hand. She doesn't become fearful, thinking someone's going to attack her or somebody's being killed. But instead, she lets go of the fear and she looks around and there's absolutely no one there and no reason why anybody screamed. There's no reason why she should have heard that. And she later said that she received a message that was their way, meaning the visitors, whether you want to call them aliens, the others, whatever, ETs, of testing her. And that led to her having so many more experiences over time. But she's not the only person to talk about how fear impacted her. We talked a little bit yesterday about how it is everybody wants to have an experience, but nobody wants to have to deal with the fear associated with that. How many times have we said we wanted to do something? A lot of people say they want to sky jump, but it isn't until they get to the top of the plane ready to jump out that they're confronted with the feelings that are involved in jumping out of the plane. I've heard countless stories, and I would ask anybody else on the panel to talk a little bit about stories that might be reminiscent of fear and how they got in the way of experiences. But one thing that we saw as commonality with a lot of people that claim to be experiencers is fear is an obstacle that get in the way of having a true experience. So I would challenge anybody here to think of a time in your life in which you wanted to do something so bad and you had to overcome that fear, and what came out of shedding that fear. The great examples that come out of anything in life. And sometimes I think that, I just know the stories that people have shared with us are about shedding the fear, because it clouds our judgment, it clouds how we see life, and it impacts all of the beauty that we can have. So that would be my answer to your question.
It's a wonderful question, an important one. All fear, if we take it down to the baseline, is fear of the unknown. Am I going to get sick and get cancer? Are my kids going to turn out okay? Is the country going to go to war? Am I going to fall in love? Is there going to be money left in the Social Security system by the time I need it? If there's one fear, could be boiled down to being more emblematic of fear of the unknown, it probably as good as any is the classic alien abduction experience. Nothing in our Western culture, our Judeo-Christian traditions, prepares us for this. A natural, healthy reaction is certainly, I'm scared, I don't know what's happening. A lot of it has to do with attitude, and is the glass half full, is the glass half empty? At the same time, talk is cheap, and it's easy for somebody to talk platitudes about it. One of the most invaluable things about a good support group, working with an investigator who really is a humanist and tuned into your needs and not just seeing you as another case or a bug on the wall that, they're getting information for their next talk or book, or a therapist, or a loving family, or a good relationship with somebody you can simply talk about and accept these things, you can get to the point where you still have fear, but it doesn't have you. For me, a great model was my late sister Helen, who brought me into this work. To say overnight would be an understatement. Within a matter of minutes, sharing with me childhood memories of being taken, sharing those memories more than 40 years ago. My life changed instantaneously in a way. And years after that, when Bud Hawkins started to run what arguably is the first UFO abduction support group, she was a member, and valued it very much. I got to attend meetings because I was Bud's assistant, and what I observed over a relatively lively and not terribly long period of time was Helen and other people getting to the point of, I can hardly believe this, but this thing that I think about every day, that has been running my life to a degree, I now see it's a real thing. It happens. It happens to other people. It happens to me. And guess what? I accept that. It might even happen again to me in my life, but that doesn't mean I'm going to not pursue my dreams, or not fall in love, or not have fun, and not even, have fun at their expense. The hell with them, whether they're good or bad, it shook me up. And I'm going on with my life, and I'll be there to support other people.
Thank you, Peter Robbins. I know that Shane Seaway had comment.
Yeah, so what I want to say about fear is, well, first of all, one of my specialties is dealing with parasitic life forms that attach themselves to people or attack people. And what I've been able to deduce after over 30 years is their ultimate goal is to get you to the state of fear. And the reason for that, I believe, is to hurt individual spiritual growth, and as well as all of us as a whole. That is their goal, to get us to the point of fear and to hold us down from growth. And Mike Stevens.
Yeah. Fear's a funny thing, and it really depends on how we want to look at it. What most of us consider and call fear is more of a worry. There's actually, in my opinion, something instinctual fear, something that we react to a situation because we're instinctually sense we're in danger. And I think a lot of that comes into play as well. I just want to make that differential.
Thank you, Mike Stevens. Jennifer Stein.
I have a little acronym I use for myself in self-coaching that I'll just share with the listening audience and you here. It's FEAR. It's false evidence appearing real. When I am struck by fear, I acknowledge it, pay attention to it, because it might be self-preservation, but in many cases it's not. It's my perception of my reality that's stopping me in my tracks. So once I've evaluated my safety and my emotional safety, then I try to coach myself forward, saying, this really might be just false evidence appearing real. I think we all have to be our own coaches in life, because few of us have them. And fear can be very paralyzing. It doesn't need to be.
Thank you, Jennifer. We have a question from the audience. And please, right to the mic.
My question is for Valerie. And my question is, as an empathic medium and an experiencer, how do you distinguish between spirit contact and possible ET contact?
Valerie LaFosse.
That's a great question. In my experience so far, so as an empath, I tend to feel the core of any being, whether it's human, animal, living, dead, whatever. When ETs show up to me in a spiritual way, their energetic core feels very, very different than humans. Not negative, not positive, it's just very different. I don't know if it's intention or if it's just a product of what they are, but there's an easily distinguishable difference for me personally. I don't know if it's like that for all intuitives who also communicate with ETs, but that's what I experience.
Thank you, Valerie. If there are no more questions from the audience at the moment, we'll move on to one from Brian from McKeesport, Pennsylvania. And Brian has a question for Bob Terrio and Mark Antonio or anyone else on the panel. As a lifelong fan of science fiction movies and realizing that only so much accuracy is possible in such a little-known field of astrobiology, studying life on the planets, theoretically, I really appreciate when filmmakers try to get the science right, as in Interstellar. Do you think that producers, writers, and directors are taking more pains to be accurate in the most recent science fiction and alien films and going forward? We'll start with Bob Terrio.
Well, sci-fi was always kind of a B-movie treatment for many, many years until 1968, when Stanley Kubrick's 2001: Space Odyssey set a new standard and a new high bar for realism in science fiction films. And basically was, even though it was very realistic, the core story is science fiction. Humans, first contact and later contact with entities or beings from another planet, another galaxy, another world. And I think since then, there's been people who generally aspire to try to, at least in a visual way, make things look as real as possible. And I think Stanley Kubrick really did set a standard for, okay, this is what we have to try to achieve, this level of realism. And anything below that, we're going to kind of fall flat in the face. So I think it set a new expectation so that George Lucas with Star Wars and Close Encounters and other films of that nature aspire to reach that level of realism in both the effects. And like with Interstellar, they're also trying to incorporate concepts that are up to date with the latest scientific concepts in quantum physics and other aspects of real science. Mark?
Thank you, Bob. As far as the science fiction being realistic based on real science, the truth is, I have seen that there are some sci-fi shows that throw it all, cast it all to the winds and say, hey, whatever brings in people into the theater, because the theaters are dying. So they go for glitz and glamour, and the realism and the scientific accuracy, most importantly, many times gets left at the door. However, as some of you know, I work with a master visual effects pioneer, Douglas Trumbull. Some of you are here at the UFO conferences probably because of his work. He worked on 2001: Space Odyssey, as Bob was talking about. He was the guy who did the special effects. That was his first job. And then on Close Encounters, he did all the special effects. So the fact that these UFOs had these lights on them, okay, this is a scientific basis from which he drew to produce effects that would be as realistic as could possibly be expected in such a situation. Obviously, he didn't say, let's go look at the roll of UFOs that have landed here before and try and mimic that and make it look real. That's not what he did. Obviously, that was an artistic decision. Spielberg allowed him to run with that, and that's why the Close Encounters movie was such a big hit, right? It was very important in our culture. So, that all said, there are movies that do this realism. Now, I know there was an astrophysicist named Kip Thorne who was the Interstellar's consultant. And I sat with Thorne years ago, and we talked about the time travel possibilities. Now, you think time travel, well, you know what? Modern science and astrophysics, those things don't kind of go together with time travel, because time travel is, time is a linear concept. You can never go back in certain instances. And Thorne produced an argument to Hawking, Stephen Hawking, and Hawking wrote a rebuttal that was to rebut Thorne's premise that time travel was possible. And as he relayed this, he was trying to be very clear how it went. He wasn't trying to say he believed it was possible. But now we're talking about accuracy, right? And this is where Interstellar got some of its information from. So as in the Interstellar movie, as time travel was instituted in Thorne's mind, entering a black hole, for instance, you could see your ship coming out of the accompanying white hole, which is the opposite end, all right, before you actually went into the black hole. And he mathematically showed this is possible. So he said to Hawking, see, time travel is possible. They were engaging in a little bit of intellectual discussion and not trying to assert any kind of a proof. Well, Hawking wrote back to Thorne that I'll read your thing, but here's why I don't think it's possible. And Thorne read Hawking's response, and Hawking read Thorne's assertion again. And they wrote each other back, and this is Thorne's, what he relayed. And Hawking said, oh yeah, I think you're right, it is possible. And Thorne said, no, you were right, it's not. So what does that show you? It shows you that even when it comes to scientific accuracy, the brightest minds on the planet, which arguably Kip Thorne and Stephen Hawking, no longer with us unfortunately, can't agree. So science is on its way, we're getting there, but in the movies, producers are going to go for the buck, they're going to go for the glitz and glamour, and sometimes the accuracy does also get left at the door. In 2001, Space Odyssey, which I saw when I was like 8 or 9 years old and said, why are monkeys throwing bones around? Okay, and what's that big black thing? Okay, I didn't get the symbolism at the time, obviously, but when it turned into spacecraft, I was hooked. Okay, and I'm watching, the work of the guy that I wound up working with many years later on the screen. I was just hooked. So the accuracy will come, I think, when we have science to back it up. Right now, we don't have a whole lot of that when it comes to the UFO arena. And there you go. That's my thought on that.
Thank you, Mark Antonio. Yes, Jeremy Stein.
I just wanted to say that the movie Mars with Matt Damon, where he's left behind, I thought was excellent. I spoke to a lot of biologists, and he has to produce his own water by this heating process and separating water out, and he builds a little greenhouse for himself. I thought that was very accurate in terms of biology and space and science and what we now know.
Thank you, Jennifer. We have a question from the audience.
Yes, my name is Alex. I'm a resident of Rochester, New Hampshire, and I thank you, panel, for being here, taking the time, and really appreciate this weekend festival. I had a question pertaining to synchronicities or coincidences, whatever you prefer to call them, regarding the experiencer phenomenon. I consider myself an experiencer. I don't know if I'm an abductee, but I've certainly witnessed a number of UFOs, and I may have seen some extraterrestrial beings, and I'm still working through that, trauma of that and the memory of that. Anyhow, earlier this morning, during the conference, I decided to just take a walk to get some fresh air while it was sunny out. I just needed to stretch my legs a little bit. And I was walking down the street, and I heard some beautiful singing coming out of the church. And it was the First Baptist Church of Exeter, also known as the Red Brick Church on Peter Street. I entered the church, sat down, participated in the end of the program. It was near the end of the service. And I later met the pastor. Turns out that the pastor knew Megan Barney Hill, and that the pastor's husband, the pastor's father, if I recall correctly, had once sold a used car to Barney Hill. I'm like, well, that could be just a coincidence. I wasn't actually planning on going to that church. I was just walking through the neighborhood and wandered into the church because I heard some singing. Would you call it a synchronicity? Would you call it a coincidence? And if it's a synchronicity, is that common to experiences? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on the panel care to answer? Peter Robb.
I've been fascinated by coincidences, significant ones, since I was young. I think it was Einstein who, I'm paraphrasing, that said that the universe may look chaotic, but if we really regard it carefully, it tends to organize itself. I see significant coincidences as a gentle tap on the shoulder, reminding us that things indeed are more connected than we sometimes feel. Sometimes to such a degree, it can be quite shattering and memorable in the extreme. I like to think there's some kind of random law of physics that governs it, and there's also the thing of pure dumb chance and happenstance. People win a $100 million lottery, and it's just a matter of numbers and randomness. Other times, I can only say, who knows?
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else on the panel care to comment on that? Thoughts? Catherine? Anyone? Okay, Jennifer Stein.
I have actually read some material about this, experienced it in my own life, that when I begin to pay attention to synchronistic events, it's almost as if they speed up, or I'm aware of more synchronistic events, that one almost begets the other. And if the world is truly a series of vibratory dimensions that we can connect with, relate with, and we know physical nature is a matter of vibratory densities and things like this, just the physical world around us, the way atoms bind together and things. And we know, as I told you in my presentation, I've been studying about the electric universe. When you go and meet some of these physicists who are talking about the nature of the electrical universe, they will absolutely talk about the electrical nature of coincidence, that there's actual physics to it. and some of them are writing on this topic. So I would encourage people to explore the electric universe theorists if they're interested more in that topic.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Anyone else? Okay, let's get to a question now from Zoe in Manchester, UK. And we're going to direct this to Chuck Credo at the moment because we were talking about this before and it's kind of right up his street. Do UFO sightings increase at certain times of the year with certain moon cycles? And do abduction reports increase at those times as well? Chuck Credo.
Yeah, so we were looking at these questions a little earlier in the prep forum, and I found out one, and I think, Kathy, you and I were talking a little bit about this earlier. So I had always had a theory going on, and Paul, you and myself have both talked about the question of, do sightings tend to happen more around the month September, October area? And the reason we were asking that question, I mean, we're here because of a very historical event that happened on September 3rd, and then Betty brought me home September 19th into the 20th. And my own father's experiences happened roughly around this time of year. I've taken a large number of reports this time of year in this area. I was always curious, what does that have to do with anything? And is there any evidence to suggest that? So we started looking at the National UFO Reporting Database, run by Peter Davenport. And obviously MUFON has some other statistics I'd love to take a look at sometimes, but you can actually break it down by each month across the U.S. and by the year, and you can go right up. And I started seeing a very clear pattern. That pattern was every time that the year had a higher incident of reports, it was always the same month. That month was June. It was always June. And then roughly in 2003, you see July being that month. And right around 2003, 2004, you start to notice that it goes down in August, and then it's always up in September and October, and then it goes completely down, and then it starts up. And from that point on, July is always the month that you have the most reports. So, Kathy, you and I were talking a little bit about, well, why is that? And I had my own theory, and you kind of confirmed that theory. You want to speak a little bit about that?
Well, we were talking about the states where the most reports are made, and I spoke about Florida and California, and we were talking about the good weather year-round in both those places, and how more people are outside looking into the sky, regardless of the month. And so I thought that maybe that played into it. And we started talking about abduction reports, and we, on my team last year, in the fall of the year, were receiving maybe 50 to 75 reports per month. But after January of this year, it began to increase. And now we're receiving an average of about 150 reports every month. I'm wondering, why is that happening? And I really cannot say for certain why it is. I don't know if it's the fact that I've been speaking a lot about MUFON's experience or research team, or if there are actually more cases taking place and more people who are willing to make confidential reports. So it's a big question mark in my mind.
And to touch on that, you had also mentioned 2015 and on, there seemed to be less reports. In fact, July of 2014, in this month, in this year, and that's pretty rare. I mean, if you look at the statistics and you look at the years, starting in 2014, according to the National UFO Reporting Database, the reports have gone down slightly every year. But 2014 seems to, in fact, July was the only month that there's ever been over 1,100 reports given to that site. So it's interesting to see that go down the last 4 years.
Well, thank you, Chuck and Kathy. Anyone else have a response to a question to the question from Zoe in England?
I have a question to follow up on that.
All right, do you have a question, sir?
Yes, to follow up.
Okay. Yes, please speak close to the mic, if you would.
Okay, my name is Andy, and I was wondering whether there's any difference in the variations
Okay, good question. Someone like to respond? Someone, please respond. Mark Antonio, how about you, sir?
I think what the deafening silence you hear is in response to the fact that we all live in the northern hemisphere, and we're probably not as aware as we should be about the southern hemisphere reports. So I'll be the one to say that we don't know. And sorry. Can't know everything. We try.
Thank you, Mark. Honest answer. This young lady has a question from the audience.
My name is Gail.
Yeah, bring close to the mic, please. Thank you.
Okay, I have a trifecta. I'm going to do this real quick. My first question, observation, is to Jennifer. Great presentation. I noticed a couple of things on the stones. One was the supposed man bag. You had made a connection to the Sumerians. I was wondering if you had any discussion about that, and the ages. Also, I made a connection with the keystone to Pumapunku. I don't know if that's been discussed, and I believe that's it for that. The other question was for Paulino on the 9 unidentified species of parasites. And I believe I understood that during the presentation you made a reference to small, lowercase gods, possibly Sumerian, the fish gods, etc. Of that kind of pantheon, we'll call it, if you feel that they are parasitic. And then the other question is to Kathleen Martin. I have a very good acquaintance source who, this is back in the 70s, so we didn't have all this high-tech stuff going on, and she is an experiencer, had been experienced all her life. On a whim, called Aunt Betty, and Betty picked up the phone and said, "Are you a journalist?" So she was very scared and nervous, a young adult, and said, "No, ma'am, I'm not." And she basically presented herself to her, and Betty said, "I'll tell you what." She lived down in the Merrimack Valley, Mass area, and she says, "Go along the river." So that would be the Merrimack River. And she gave her a site that I'm very aware of that runs in the valley. And sure as she did have contact. So I was wondering if you ever had that kind of conversation with your aunt about the river system being a conduit for contact.
I think we just filled up the rest of the show. So I'll turn it over to Jennifer Stein. Jennifer, if you could say 5 or 10 words about the Gobekli Tepe. Just so for our people out in radio, I was trying to say that people out in radio land will be able to understand what we're doing.
So I don't think that she asked a specific question about the Sagba text, but I referred to them, and for the listening audience, there is a Sumerian cylinder text. It's in the University of Pennsylvania Museum in Philadelphia, and it discusses the ancient cattle and grain story out of Sumer. Sumer is a culture that developed between the Tigris and the Euphrates River around 5,000–6,000 BC, maybe earlier, we're not sure. And this cattle and grain text discusses two beings, Lanar and Ashtar, who descend from this mysterious place referred to as the Duku. We don't know if the Duku is a high mountainous region or is some kind of craft or is from another planet or some other dimension. It's a mystery. And these two beings bring farming to humanity. They bring the intelligence of how to do advanced agriculture and the development of cereal grains into a food source, or refining natural roots and grains that were maybe here on the planet, but turning them into developed agriculture. So that's called the Sagba text. I'll turn the mic over to Kathleen, who can discuss the second part of the question.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Kathleen Martin.
With regard to the question on whether or not my Aunt Betty and I had discussed the prevalence of sightings of UFOs along rivers, I did have a discussion with Betty when I was in my late teens, probably 18, or 19 years old. And it was sightings that my girlfriends and I had of UFOs along the Merrimack River as we were out driving around at night. And so that is about the extent of my knowledge. I know that Betty did speak with many, many people who had UFO sightings in many different areas.
Thank you, Kathy. I guess there was another part of the question directed to me in reference to parasitical entities. This is a concept most people are not used to hearing about in paranormal studies. When you get beyond UFOs, people will think of ghosts, must be spirits of the dead. And it's been a long time since I believed any of that. I think the truth, at least as we see it, Ben and I see it, is very different. Parasitical entities we feel are perhaps undiscovered science. They seem to be life forms. I've been running into them for the better part of 50 years, and I couldn't really explain them beyond the theology of the demon, which is such as it is, in poltergeist cases, exorcism cases of this kind, until I started thinking of it in a new way. And again, maybe I'm wrong, but the way I see it is there were at least 9 different species of these, and I kind of rank them from the top, which is the wise, and believe me, they're not wise in any way that's going to benefit us. And are they demons, or are they evil? Well, what do you mean by evil? I hate to be relativistic, but when it comes to something that's good for the mosquito that sucks your blood, it's good for them, but it's not necessarily good for us, particularly if there's a disease attached to it. So these are relative things. The wise tend to work alone. They will, at times, follow families or generations, and this stuff gets pretty weird. For example, I was in California lecturing in San Diego one time, and there was a woman in the audience who just drew my attention. You know, it wasn't anything to do with her good looks or anything, just there was something wrong going on there. And she came up to me later and said, I needed to talk to you, and sure enough, she had one of these following, it might have been one of the wives, it might have been one of the others, following her family for generations. They were all psychic, all the way down to her grandmother, great-grandmother. They all had these gifts, but you could feel something attached to her. You kind of know what these things feel like, and it's not good. So there's that, and then you kind of move down the food chain, so to speak, to the bottom of the line, which is the brats, as I call them. And they're two-dimensional thinkers, so they will act like small children. One of the most fascinating tendencies of all parasites, particularly the lower echelon that I found, is that the longer they spend attached to a human host, or in our world, as it were, because I believe they're multiversal creatures, you know, they can come and go. I've seen them working in 3 or 4 different worlds at the same time to feed. The longer they spend doing that, away from their own world, the more they tend to forget their own origins, which I think is really fascinating. I was working with a very famous artist in New York City. I know that Peter knows, Peter Robbins knows who that is, but I don't want to say her name. For 25 years, she had one of these, I believe it was one of the brats, throwing her down the stairs and doing all this sort of thing. And the thing was afraid to leave her because it didn't know what to do or where to go or how to eat. And they need to eat. These are creatures, they're not spirits. They're entirely physical in their own world, according to my opinion. In the middle echelon, you have the farmers, who will literally farm you or your family, sometimes again for generations. They'll sometimes move from one member of the household to another. We see this day in and day out. And I don't want to take too much time with this, but that's essentially how it works. There'll be a long exposition of this in my next book that's coming out next year. And you can stay tuned to our website for that, behindtheparanormal.com. But that's essentially it. I want to stress that I am the last person, and so it's Ben, to take away personal responsibility. I think we're responsible for our own problems. I think there's a tendency to say the devil made me do it. Nor to blame, especially in modern times, to blame someone else for your own problems. But I think it's there are these parasites which will push your buttons, feed on you. They learn. They're very intelligent. And how do you fight this? Well, Ben and I call it the Peter Pan theory. Think, happy thought. Sounds dumb, but boy, does it ever work. We go into poltergeist cases, I got rid of the worst poltergeist I ever dealt with by using a joke book. bring in positive energy, especially humor. I always told my boys growing up, always laugh but not at each other. Keep it positive. So essentially, positive energy will cut off the food supply of the negative energy, and you're at square one to defeat these things. So, okay, so we will, I don't think anybody else has a comment on that. Shane has been working with me for years now, almost 20 years on this parasite issue, and I will try not to trip for Jennifer here. And Shane, if you'd like to comment on that.
So, I'll be talking more about this a little bit later today, 2:45 to 4 o'clock. And I'll be getting really in depth to what initiates a connection between us and these parasites, what draws them to us. And it's actually frequency-based, so emotional frequencies, and I'll be really elaborate with that. Once you understand that actually what it initiates and allows it to continue, you understand how simple it is to get rid of. And the common techniques that are used by most people to get rid of them don't work, and there's a reason why they don't work, and I'll be discussing that thoroughly later on.
All right, thank you, Shane. We have a question from the audience. Yes. Just please step right close to the mic there and take your question if you wish.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I was wanting to ask about dogs and what different causes of dogs mean. And what does it mean when blood changes color?
Okay, well, is that for anyone in particular?
For anyone in particular.
Okay. Anyone want to talk about orbs? Because I think this is relevant to this concept because orbs seen in the sky that people can call them UFO. So Kathy Martin.
I worked on several cases where orbs were involved inside people's homes and also in their yards. I spoke yesterday, I showed a photograph of an orb that was white and had a light blue halo around it. And this orb entered a man's bedroom, flew across the room, put out iridescent tentacles, and then drove into his body, and he was cured from cancer that night. So that was really a benevolent experience. I worked on an experience, and Paul is familiar with this because I asked him to become involved in it as well, of a pilot at an airport in the Southwest. And he was observing and taking photographs of red orbs. And also, he was seeing gray orbs with goat faces inside them. And he was having highly negative experiences. He even referred to them as demonic because in one case he was in his office, he had his shirt off, and he felt fingernails tear across his chest. And he had bleeding scratches on his chest. So both positive and negative.
Thank you, Kathy. Chuck Reed.
Yeah, just real briefly. I can't answer the question. I don't know if anybody here really can. I mean, if we knew what different colored orbs meant, somebody would be writing the next book and probably going on another lecture tour, right? But what I can tell you is there are web pages designed just around orange or red orbs alone. You can find Facebook pages where people report just specifically those types of orbs. In Ossipee, New Hampshire, not too far from here, about 50 minutes north on 16, I read multiple reports all on the same night that were given to the police department in Ossipee, New Hampshire. All these people were on 16 going northbound, red orbs following their cars, they pulled over, called police, all on the same night. It's fascinating. My own family had a place in Ossipee Lake, which they witnessed. My brother, my niece, and my nephew, orbs coming down, crisscrossing over Ossipee Mountains, and then going out the opposite direction they came in. And I know multiple people that see these orbs. Actually, it's one of the most common types of sightings that I have probably taken in the area. Just to, I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you, Chuck.
I wanted to ask, does anybody know about shadow people? They look like people that are just like under a shadow.
Well, I'll just take that briefly. The term was invented by a good friend of ours, Heidi Hollis, relatively recently. And the whole idea of, I've had producers get very upset with me when I describe it this way, but when you have the membranes or brains, as physicists call it, BRANES, which supposedly can separate one parallel world from another. Our opinion may be a little wrong as you look across it, and it could be someone who looks just like you, but they're going to look spooky and weird because they're going to be glowing because of the plasma and the electromagnetic field that may be involved in this brain. So they can also sometimes be dark and shadowy. It could be as simple as what we call that simple. It could be as simple as that you're simply looking across the membrane into a parallel reality, and there's the being. Or there's your Uncle John who died 6 years ago, and but he never died in that world. I mean, it really gets wild. So I think that the shadow people also, on the other hand, we run into them in parasite cases all the time. Particularly the little ones. And Shane and I have been working since 2005 on the Torrington, Connecticut case, which we call the Litchfield Triangle. And people see these little short things running around in their houses that are just dark, shadowy, humanoid-shaped creatures. So we really don't know, but we suspect they may be parasitical or they may be just neutral and seen across the world boundaries of parallel reality. Anybody else have some thoughts on that? Shane? Yep. The thought on the shadow people? You and I kind of work on it.
Yeah, so a lot of people associate shadow people with negative entities. I found that's not always the case. A lot of it has to do with what Paul was talking about, multiversal type of things, crossovers, or we call bleedovers. But I've encountered the shadow people that were actually helpful sometimes, and a lot of times they are negative. And later on in my discussion, I'll actually be showing a photo of one that I took that was actually running up on me. So if you guys stick around, you'll be able to see that.
Okay, thank you, Shane. Any more comments on that subject? Okay. We have just a few minutes left of the show. I'd like to get maybe one more brief question in from Katie from California. That kind of rolls off the tongue. As for anyone on the panel, do you find that people who are abducted have increased psychic powers? Anyone like to deal with that? Start with Kathy Martin.
Denise Stouter and I asked that question in our 2012 study of 75 people, 50 were experiencers, and 88% said that they had increased psychic or intuitive ability that they believed was the result of their experiences. We also asked that question in a recent MUFON study of 516 experiencers. And again, there was definitely heightened psychic and intuitive abilities among experiencers, and particularly among abductees.
I have to agree with Kathy, and at the same time there is a factor I can best describe by example. Several years ago, Jennifer Stein and myself, the great UFO writer and a real champion in the field, Robert Salas, and his lovely wife Marilyn, spent some time in the center of crop circle country at the height of the season. It was a very, very special experience for all of us. Jennifer had arranged the trip. We had one of the local authorities on the ground bring us to 3 sites on the first day. And Wiltshire is so beautiful. I expected Jane Austen to ride up in a carriage at a certain point. It was overwhelming. And when you're on the ground with crop circles, you don't have the drama of looking down on them. My point being that people have asked me after the fact, did you feel something when you were in the circle? And I said, absolutely. I have no idea, though, whether or not it was the phenomenology or physiology of the enhanced harmonic signature or any other factors that I was experiencing, were just the jaw-dropping 15-watt bulb reality of, oh my God, I'm in a crop circle. If you have had an abduction experience, and you have the psychic abilities sitting there, the same way that, gee, I'd like to draw and paint, but I've never really tried it, but now I think I'm going to. I'm not sure how that sort of figure ground relationship works, but I do know the stats that Kathy is talking about are correct.
Okay, thank you, Peter Robbins. We have 2 minutes left. First of all, I want to thank our wonderful speakers. Stay there, okay? Thank our wonderful speakers for this tremendous exchange today. Thank those who wrote in. We are foregoing our announcements today except for one.
October 5th and 6th in Leominster, Massachusetts, the Greater New England UFO Conference. We'll be having Paul Eno, Mark D'Antonio, Shane Zeroy, and many other exciting speakers at Leominster City Hall, www.newenglandufo.com. I have buttons I'm giving out to people. If you're interested, we hope to see you there.
So please see all the website links on our site, behindtheparanormal.com, which is obviously our show site. You'll be able to get, if you wish, there are free 800 hours or more of shows for our past 11 years on the air, including our 4.5-year run on CBS Radio, and they're all free again, behindtheparanormal.com. Also, some very interesting links to the sites of our speakers, etc. So we will, next week, we're going to have, what are we going to have next week? We're going to have an open line show with Shane Zeroy. That's right. So that's going to be from our studios in Rhode Island. And all paranormal subjects are open game. And we leave you this afternoon with a beautiful thought from the 14th century Persian poet Hafiz. I love this guy. I wish I could show you, when you are lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being. Okay, still on the rest. All right. I want to also thank our impromptu producer today, Ben, who's usually my co-host on the show. He's been invisible, but this couldn't have happened without him. And I never worry when he's in charge. He loses a little more weight. But there we go. They agree. But in any case, tune in. That's Ben in the back row, right? So again, thank everyone. Great audience today. And do tune into our show. It's every week, 12 to 1 Eastern Time on WOON, AM FM radio. You probably can't get in this area because it's too far away. But onworldwide.com is the site. Just hit the ON, the ON at work icon. And you'll be able to not only hear the show, but have the jarring experience of actually seeing us there in the studio. And we usually have a good time with really great, intelligent guests such as these folks. So we're done. I'm Paul Eno. We have Ben back there. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry to say my time is up. Wow. This work is actually, if you're crazy enough to try to earn a living at it, it's not only an awful way to earn a living and stand stupid, but the perks on the job can be absolutely phenomenal. I really don't have much to say about what's been said, except thank all these wonderful people for doing what they just did. And on behalf of the Academy, I would say.
Get closer to the
This talk that I'm going to give is not one that a subject that I would have originally gravitated toward. About a dozen years ago, a conference organizer approached me and said, I'm looking for somebody to speak on essentially this topic. And I thought to myself, not my cup of tea really. I zone in more on classic cases. I try to couch my studies solidly in American history, in part because it fascinates me because ufology and UFO-related events are indeed a part of American and world history, although they're always seen as outsider subjects. So Also, it seemed very sensational and tabloid and national enquirer-ish, and I'm not a conspiracy-oriented person by nature. At the same time, I know that by simple definition, history is in great part defined by conspiracies. One or more people plotting in private for usually some nefarious aim, and if it happens, then it becomes part of the historical record. But I don't look for this kind of challenge. My response to the organizer was, well, that's interesting, but let me tell you what I'm interested in talking about. He listened to me very patiently and then basically said, thank you very much. I'm looking for somebody to speak about this subject. If it's not you, I'll hire somebody else. And I thought, Yes, exactly. I have come at it several times, and it became personal as I refined the number of people down in the presentation to 8 individuals. And then, quite honestly, as I was developing it, thought, wait a minute, some of these are classic individuals, all of whom fit the criteria of a death under somewhat questionable circumstances, or timing, or their high visibility cut off at a certain moment, or their relative youth. But of these 8 people, I knew 4 of them, and 3 of them were not just friends, they were good friends. Hang on, I seem to have gotten myself into a situation where I am potentially investigating the murders of 3 of my friends. And then it became serious for me. Lee Harvey Oswald. I am of a generation where I remember that terrible day when the President of the United States was murdered. It had a tremendous impact on my life. I was a geeky little kid who hero worshipped John Kennedy, and I was never really able to let go of that thread. As things codified, and as I got older, this notion of the lone gunman, that crazed individual that makes their way through and knocks off a famous person. In fact, I've come to kind of define it in my own way of thinking of, in American culture, sadly, it has become not that uncommon. If you want to become well-known in a hurry, kill somebody famous and you're there. You cut through all the work and save yourself a lot of time and energy. Of course, you're either dead or in jail for the rest of your life. I do not accept the single gunman period. And I remember on the 30th anniversary of the murder of John Kennedy, President Clinton made some remarks about it. And he cited something that normally I would not only accept as true, but as a guiding principle for me. Essentially, that when a person who is beloved, who is a national figure, who is important to many people, who is iconic, dies in a seemingly senseless accident or act of violence, we need to ascribe meaning to it, because the thought that it was just something that happened is almost intolerable. But of course, Kennedy was killed by a lone gunman. I was furious at President Clinton, still am, because we should have known better, or we did know better, but that's the party line. What we're looking at here involves conspiratorial thinking to a degree, in that some of these people in my field, especially now in this golden age of anything goes conspiracy, want them on a certain level to have been murdered rather than, died of some other cause. So, because I have a lot of factual material, sometimes I, like my colleagues, give a talk cued by the next slide. This one I do have to work from notes, so forgive me for those moments when I just peer into the paper. This gentleman, some of you know as Jack Ruby. We certainly know for a fact that he murdered the alleged killer of John Kennedy. And I say alleged because that's all it is. The one statement that came out of Lee Harvey Oswald, beyond hundreds of thousands of pages that have been written about him. I'm a patsy. I'm a fall guy. And a lot of people feel he was a lone gunman. A lot of people feel he was part of a conspiracy. Some of us are not even sure if he pulled the trigger. But one thing is for sure, this man killed him. He is connected with the mob, and he died of cancer shortly after in his jail cell in Dallas. More about that later. George Bush was, he or his people were quite savvy to ways to deflect. I remember when Nixon was president, at a certain point he started to do the double V, which had previous to that been a sign of, we're going to win over the Vietnam War, we're going to get out of war. It was something that the peace movement used, and then he co-opted it and they stopped. Early on in his presidency, he began to use the phrase conspiracy theory to put down people who were coming at him and make them seem silly rather than him take responsibility for certain things that he said that proved untrue later. Okay, our first individual that we're going to take a look at, Lars Ketchum Jessup, better known as M.K. Jessup, was a very popular UFO writer of the 50s. It's alleged that he was murdered and that the murder was made to look like a suicide, or that he was brainwashed into taking his own life, the reason being that he had gotten too close to some aspect of the truth about UFOs. There is no question that M.K. Jessup was an outstanding writer and researcher. His work, all published in the 1950s, is still highly readable and rises above the level of most of the so-called golden age of UFO literature from the 50s, except for maybe Donald Kehoe. It's literate, it's articulate, it's backed up by facts. One thing to keep in mind as we move forward is while we're looking at, kind of the more tabloid aspects of how these people exited this life, for me, it's more than equally important that you have some understanding of who they were, what their lives were about, and how they lived it. Without that context, their deaths will not mean as much or be of much value looking back on this. Jessup's professional credits were varied and impressive. He began his career as an instructor of astronomy and mathematics at Drake University and the University of Michigan, where he also received his doctorate in astrophysics. The university then hired him to supervise what then would have been the largest refracting telescope in the Western Hemisphere. Jessup's passion for scholarship in the twin fields of archaeology and anthropology led him to carry out significant independent research at Mayan and Incan ruins in Central America and abroad as well. In the process, he became an acknowledged expert on megalithic stoneworks of Peru, Easter Island, and Syria, among other ancient locations. It was about this time in his life that he became interested in the subject of UFO visitations in both the modern and ancient world. In that, he really came on the scene as far as a proselytizer of ancient visitations a decade and a half before Von Daniken blew the subject open in the 60s with Chariots of the Gods. In 1956, while preparing to travel to Mexico to survey meteorite craters and continue his research into ancient visitations, the project's sponsor, which was the University of Michigan, learned that this man they otherwise felt was a distinguished person, rightly chosen to carry out this important job, took UFOs seriously, and they fired him. His related UFO writing now bringing him very little income, just decided to self-publish his books. But he's not a very good businessman. It fell apart. 2 years later, he and his wife separated. The expressed in marriage, as happens in certain cases where you have a partner who becomes dedicated or even obsessed with a mission, can fracture the bonds of even a very deep, loving marriage, and that's what happened to him. He moved back to his home state of Indiana, where he worked as an editor and pursued his growing interest in psychic phenomena. This wonderful gentleman is Ivan T. Sanderson. Sanderson began his career in the late 1930s as a Marine, as a large mammal biologist, writing about jungle cats and the like. I would have loved to have met a gregarious guy, a brilliant writer, and smart as a whip. Somewhere along the line, he became interested in UFOs and wrote two very outstanding books, Invisible Residents and Uninvited Visitors. Invisible Residents is the first book dedicated to underwater UFOs, a subject that is now of great interest, and we know of even greater interest to the United States and other navies. This book came out, the second book on UFOs, Uninvited Visitors, in the mid-60s, and had the publishing distinction of being the very first book ever published with a hologram. That top circle is a cutout in the book jacket, and there is a hologram glued to the book. He became good friends with Jessup, and they communed on this subject. But at this point, Sanderson found Jessup in a very gloomy state, and complaining that a series of quote-unquote strange events, which had he hesitated to discuss in detail, had pulled him into, quote, complete world of unreality. During that time, two manuscripts which Jessup had submitted to an independent publisher were rejected, increasing his depression. The writer now left for New York, and soon after, left New York, where he had met with Sanderson, but did not return to Indiana and was missing for some time. Some months later, he turned up in Florida, where he had had a serious auto accident that he was not interested in talking about. His depression continued to deepen, and in April 1959, he wrote a letter to his friend, the radio host Long John Neville. Neville deserves a quick footnote here in that he was the first nationally syndicated radio broadcaster to make UFOs and their implications a huge broadcast subject. Frank Edwards, who we'll discuss later, kind of followed in his wake. But the letter that he wrote to Neville was, in the words of Sanderson, who had seen it, a straight suicide note. And on April 20th, the 59-year-old Jessup drove to a quiet spot near where he was living in Dade County, where he connected a hose to the exhaust pipe, ran the other end into his driver's window, rolled up the window, stuffed the openings with wet rags, turned on the car, and was found the next morning dead of carbon monoxide poisoning. There are several things about the suicide that don't add up. The space between the window and where the hose came in and would have let in air, again, was stuffed with wet rags. However, there was no bucket or bag or any container that could have held the rags, and no sign of moisture anywhere. For some reason, the coroner's office did not conduct an autopsy, which is required by law in Florida. I read an account by an Oregon researcher named Richard Onken in Seattle, who claimed that the suicide was, in his terminology, a frame-up, and that Jessup had been sent an audio tape, and that in listening to it, it had brainwashed him or reprogrammed his mind to kill himself. Again, one can only, there's nothing to back it up. That man is not alive to confirm the event. Sanderson's wife, Sabrina, also saw the suicide note, which Jessup had sent to her husband as well. To an alternative figure. And was certain, she said it was certainly a suicide note as well. I'm left leaning in toward that this man did take his life as his career collapsed around him, as his marriage broke up. But the fact that Jessup himself had talked about that he had been put into a space of complete unreality, that's kind of red flag for somebody doing something to someone. Also the idea that you could listen to a tape recording and it could hypnotize you or cause you to act in a way you would not otherwise. So I'm left with this case in Stanton Friedman's terminology of it being in my gray box. More research needs to be done on it. This remarkable woman is Dorothy Kilgallen. She was an extremely well-connected media personality and nationally syndicated newspaper columnist from the 1940s through the mid-60s. While she was best known to Americans old enough to remember this period of time as a longtime panelist on the then very popular TV show, What's My Line, make no mistake about it, she was also a very serious investigative writer who maintained a very highly critical attitude of the way that the press had treated the Kennedy assassination and wrote openly and fairly accurately about the UFO cover-up in the 50s and into the 60s. Her column in the now defunct journal American, which was read by quite a few million people every week, called The Voice of Broadway, alternated between an old-fashioned celebrity gossip column and hardcore investigative writing. In 1952, for example, she reported on an unidentified flying object that had crashed near Spitsbergen, in Norway. Rational concern that the wreck might represent advanced Russian technology was undercut by testimony of a Norwegian Air Force colonel who claimed that the board of inquiry that had looked into this, quote, some time ago, a misunderstanding was caused by saying that the disc probably was of Soviet origin. It has, this we wish to state emphatically, not been built by any country on Earth, end quote. No, I take that back. Oh, it continues. The materials used in construction are completely unknown to experts having participated in this investigation. 8 years later, Kilgallen published an article entitled Flying Saucer Wreckage Assumes Written of Reality. It appeared in May 23, 1955 in London's International News Service and was picked up by numerous newspapers there in Great Britain and abroad, including the Los Angeles Examiner. To quote, I can report today on a story which is positively spooky and to mention chilling, and not to mention chilling. British scientists and airmen are explaining the wreckage of one of mysterious flying ship, and they're convinced that the strange aerial objects are not optical illusions, but are flying saucers that originate on another planet. The source of my information is a British official of cabinet rank who prefers to remain unidentified. We believe, on the basis of our inquiry thus far, that the saucers were staffed by small men, probably under 12 feet tall. It's frightening, but there's no denying the flying saucers come from another planet. The official quoted scientists as saying a flying saucer of this type could not possibly have been constructed on Earth. The British government, I learned, is withholding an official report on the flying saucer examination at this time, possibly because it does not want to frighten the public, end quote. We now know that there were such considerations at this point in the early 50s. When Kilgallen made, while she never made her source public, and she again is talking about a cabinet level official. This is not some goofball reporter or hack or cultist. Key investigators have speculated that the account originated with Queen Elizabeth's husband, Lord Mountbatten. Louis Mountbatten was a larger-than-life figure who was involved militarily, diplomatically, and ultimately lost his life in a terrorist bombing in London. Gordon Creighton, a former diplomat and British Army officer, military intelligence officer, went on to become editor of Britain's long-running Flying Saucer Review, which is the longest published UFO publication in certainly the English language in history. After reading her column, Creighton wrote to Dorothy Kilgallen at once seeking further information, but never got a reply from her, and she died a few years later. We can take it as certain that she had been effectively removed, was Creighton's comment after Ms. Kilgallen's death was reported. Additional support for this account can be deduced from a statement issued at about this time by Britain's Air Chief Marshal Lord Dowden, who said in part, quote, "I am convinced that these objects do exist and that they are not manufactured by any nation on Earth." Talk about disclosure. These were public statements made in the international press more than 60 years ago. And yet, here we are still living in the fun. There's Air Marshal Dowden. And the shot before was Gordon Creighton. This gentleman is my friend and colleague Timothy Good, one of the most respected UFO writers in the United Kingdom, and certainly the best connected. He noted in his very important book about Top Secret, which should be in every UFO library, quote, "Why should Dorothy Kilgallen risk her reputation as one of the USA's star journalists by propagating an untrue story? To the best of my knowledge, she never denied the story. Furthermore, a number of similar stories from reliable sources surfaced over the years, not all of which can be discounted, however absurd they may sound," end quote. John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Following the assassination of President Kennedy, Dorothy Kilgallen was one of the very few American journalists, not just with the intellect, the curiosity, but the flat-out courage to reject the lone gunman theory that Lee Harvey Oswald had acted alone. She also, and I have no idea how, became the only journalist to talk her way into Jack Ruby's jail cell and interview him. The interview and other factors convinced the reporter that the president's murder was the result of a conspiracy about which she laid her thoughts out in a series of columns, even publishing the text of Ruby's classified testimony before the Warren Commission. Unfortunately, Kilgallen was very public about the fact that she was saving her best material, including the interview with Ruby and other damning material for a book that she was writing. That may have sealed her fate, because on November 8th of 1965, she was found dead in her bed in her Manhattan apartment. However, there was a book propped up in her lap, and it was upside down. She did not have her reading glasses on and could not have read without them. She was wearing a sweater over her nightgown, which she would have never done in a room where it was warm enough. She also had her false eyelashes on, which she would have always taken off before bed. And although this may sound quirky, she had a big Manhattan apartment, had not slept in the master bedroom for years. She slept in a guest bedroom, and yet her body was found in that bed. Mark Lane, a pioneering JFK assassination researcher and author of the very important Plausible Denial, was convinced that Miss Kilgallen had been murdered and that the CIA might have been involved. Not surprisingly, the extensive files that Kilgallen had built up on the incriminating aspects of the Kennedy assassination were missing from her apartment when her body was found. Given this, these and other significant confirmed factors that are too long to go into, I am absolutely convinced that Dorothy Kilgallen was murdered. One can speculate that it had to do with her interest in and fairly accurate reporting about the UFO phenomena, but I think for the forces that be in the mid-60s in the United States intelligence community, that would have been backburnered. I think she was killed for what she was going to reveal about the Kennedy assassination. It's fair though to keep open speculation that it might have been influenced by the UFO factor. One of the two central figures in my investigation here that we'll be talking about, and one of my ufological heroes, is Dr. James E. McDonald. He was a highly respected atmospheric physicist who attempted to bring the subject of UFOs to the serious attention of both the American public and the established scientific community, much to the detriment of both his professional reputation and personal life. His lectures and writings, which are still available online and in print, ring with passion, insight, intelligence, and anger, and are as timely now as they were back then. He alleged that the members of the National Academy of Science and it's alleged that this member of the National Academy of Sciences, the American Meteorological Society, and the Institute for Atmospheric Physics was murdered, and that the murder was made to look like suicide. This is the definitive biography on McDonald. It was written by the great Ann Drummond, California resident and now maybe the most senior living UFO researcher. It is superb. It's one of the finest biographies I've ever read, not to mention one of the finest UFO biographies ever written. James McDonald was born in 1920, earned a BA at the University of Omaha, an MS from MIT, and his PhD at Iowa State University. His investigative specialty was cloud physics, but a wide-ranging curiosity led him into other areas of scientific inquiry as well. On a drive through Arizona in 1954, he and three friends, had a UFO sighting. It was not life-changing for him, but it was something that he continued to think about, and he did make an official report to the United States Air Force on the proper forms, never heard back from him. In 1958, however, he began investigating the subject very quietly, but in earnest, and affiliated himself with the now defunct National Committee on the Investigation of Aerial Phenomena, aka NICAP. In the process, he grew to feel that neither the Air Force's Project Blue Book nor the scientific community were paying proper attention to this phenomenon. The well-published Michigan UFO flap of 1966 only deepened his curiosity and made him all the more interested in conducting his own UFO survey. As a result, he applied for and secured a small grant from the Office of Naval Research to review the Project Blue Book material kept at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. The ONI felt that certain kinds of clouds might be responsible for perceived UFO phenomena, and being an acknowledged credentialed cloud expert, McDonald was given permission and encouraged to look through this material completely. During his visit to the base, he received permission and went through the material. And when he finished it, he requested a photocopy and was told that while he was reading it, it had been reclassified and copies were no longer available. It proved to him, deductive reasoning, that there was something that they were covering up and that more work needed to be done in this very important area. Well, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who is one of the great heroes in ufology, who was so famous in his time that he plays himself in the final control room scene in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The guy that looked like this wasn't an actor looking like this, it was him. However, from 1952 until about 1970, the great Dr. Hynek was a shill for the CIA. He was living a double life. He was head of astronomy for Northwestern University, and he was also involved in disseminating propaganda, putting forward nonsensical theories like swamp gas, and in codifying all of the bullshit and debunking in the very now famous 1952 or 1953 Robertson panel meeting. Well, during the visit to the base, McDonald learned the level of Hynek's involvement and made a point of confronting him. And as they say in the vernacular, tore him a new one. And this so affected Hynek that it was the factor that he credited with going public and basically saying, I screwed up, and then becoming a champion for the truth. Jacques Vallée, still one of the most important voices in the work, was impressed enough with this newcomer's resolve that he later wrote, "It is clear that an entire era has come to an end. This man has many contacts, many ideals, and he is afraid of nothing." From that point on, almost all of McDonald's life work was dedicated to proselytizing about this, meeting with official scientific groups, press organizations, and pounding away at the fact. Unfortunately, his criticism of Edward B. Condon, who had headed the Colorado University's review of Project Blue Book and basically said everything's fine, received tremendous ire from him and he backed from Condon. But it was Donald K. Mental, the godfather to arch debunker Philip Klass, who really came after him after he came after Mental. Mental lived an ultimate double life. He was head of Harvard Astronomy Studies and a Stanford and brilliantly established research years ago. Also a very loyal member of the American intelligence community. The forces were arrayed against Dr. McDonald. Class and I had to go to, I won't give it because we're actually going to not be able to finish this talk. But Class was nothing if not clever, and he immediately realized his best strategy was not calling names before citing silly things like swamp gas, but he contacted the Navy office that had given a grant to McDonald and informed them that he was loopy about UFOs. The grant was removed. The subject continued to spin against him. In 1970, McDonald was invited to testify before the Senate on hearings about what was called the SST, the supersonic transport, which in fact was the Concorde. And he was talking about the potential for pollution in terms of cloud physics. But when the congressional representative sitting in on this discussion learned that he thought flying saucer movement were real, he was humiliated and brought into a level of, I guess he would call clinical depression. At this point, his wife, who had been tremendously loyal to him, she had been a stranger for several years, just obsessed with this subject. My sense is she was a wonderful woman and a great partner, but he cut her off. She fell in love with another man. She approached him about divorce, and he started to plan how he was going to kill himself. He bought a pistol, and he shot himself. And he survived, but he was almost blind. His wife rallied to his side along with their 2 daughters. They encouraged him in his work. His sight had turned enough that he could return to the Department of Atmospheric Physics in Phoenix and worked very hard to make those closest to him understand that he was getting better. In fact, he was just working very hard to make it seem that he was getting better. And on 13th, 1971, he left work, had the cab driver drive him into downtown Phoenix, in front of a pawn store, could see enough to walk in and buy a gun and some bullets. Another cab took him to a remote area out near the desert. He walked a mile to a bridge and shot himself and died. I can only say that while Dr. Menzel and Edward U. Condon and Philip Glass did not pull the trigger, they contributed to this man's death as much as they had. He was a true casualty of courage and UFO truth, and we should always remember him as one of the most important and valuable figures in the work, his obituary. And Firestorm. Next figure is Frank Edwards. Frank Edwards was one of the most popular American broadcasters in history. He had a show that was syndicated on hundreds of radio shows around the country and wrote a series of best-selling books on flying saucers and the paranormal and the strange. He was the first radio personality to bring one of the great heroes and the first great rationalist of UFO publishing into the realm of being a public celebrity, and that was Donald Kehoe, who was a regular guest on his shows. And these books were out now, bestsellers. Okay. This, of course, is the first book written about the phenomena, and Edward again. He also has regular guest, Gray Barker, one of the most colorful figures of UFOdom, a teller of tales, a chronicler of wild truths, and the creator of the most paranoid titled book in ufology, and the man who popularized the notion of men in black. If you take it seriously, or have men in black experiences, or left your behinds on at the very funny movies, it is Gray Barker that you have to thank for that. This brings us into, in 1957, NICAP, worked with him on more broadcasts, and America was really starting to take greater attention to UFO phenomena because of this one broadcast. This all leads up to a UFO conference that took place in New York City, and he was scheduled to be the lead individual. It was going to be in June of 1967 and take place on June 24th, which would have been the 20th anniversary of the Kenneth Arnold sightings that are depicted here. Again, we have a portrait of Edwards. It was Gray Barker who was close to him, who kind of sounded the first alarm that he had gotten a message that Edwards was not going to live to or was going to die at the conference. Coming from Gray Barker, people took it with a grain of salt, Edwards included. But Long John Neville received similar information, and he took it seriously. And again, this was a huge conference. Hundreds of people were arrayed in that audience on that morning to find out from the MC that Edwards had been found dead in his hotel room the night before. I don't know what his dietary habits were. I don't know if he was a smoker, but he was overweight. And yet, the timing on this, the two warnings, one we can take with a grain of salt, the other from an absolutely reliable and credible broadcaster, lead me to think there was a good chance that he was murdered. Again, no smoking gun here, but a lot of smoke. I'm going to quickly zoom through this next one because, again, time is of the essence, and also I'm going to quickly zoom through this one. I hope maybe I'll do those at a different point. But let's jump to Graham Ersall. Graham Birdsall, in his time, was arguably the most important central figure and linchpin, bar none, in British ufology. He was editor-in-chief of England's UFO magazine, not to be confused with the American magazine of the same name. It started out as a mimeographed little bulletin in the early 80s, and by the time it passed in 2003, was the finest mass culture UFO magazine ever published in the English language. This was still very much the era of print publications. They are disappearing now because of the digital world. They were beautifully laid out. They had the top writers. They were extremely timely, dealing with the most important cases. Graham also had a gift that almost none of us in ufology had. He was a brilliant businessman. And he made the magazine make money, and he organized dozens and dozens of conferences over more than 2 decades, every one of them absolutely first class. He brought us in, not just from all over the UK, but he brought colleagues, friends, speakers in from all over the world. He was born and bred in Leeds. He was a big bearer guy. I loved him. If he believed in what you were doing, he was your friend forever. If he didn't believe in what you're doing and thought you were a liar or charlatan, God help you. In 2003, at the height of his power, really, he was the mover and shaker. He had great writers. You had Tim Good, Nick Pope, Jenny Reynolds, you name them, in the UK. But he was the man who made it all happen. And at the age of 49, much to my horror and shock, I got a communication from England that he had what was alleged to be a cerebral aneurysm, and he died 3 days later. If there was one person worth taking out, so to say, in the entire British establishment of UFO studies to do the most damage, it was Graham. I knew him well enough that the last time I saw him, about 9 months before he died, I was staying over at his house with his wife Christine and his daughter Helen, and we were staying up late. We were drinking too much, we were chain smoking. A topic of conversation is you have to stop drinking too much, and we really have to stop smoking. And he showed me a French documentary that, like the documentary that Bob showed you yesterday, the Disney documentary, was shown once and then yanked from the air. But he had a colleague who had a VHS tape right there, slammed it in. And at about 1 in the morning, he said, I want you to watch this with me, mate, let me know what you think. It was in French, but there was enough English in it that you got the sense of what it was. And what it purported to be, and if it was a put-up job, it was brilliant heading, was that Stanley Kubrick had been enrolled by the White House to create a fake moon landing just in case the moon landing didn't happen. What the real concern was more the Hasselblad cameras. These were state-of-the-art cameras. They were in lead casing, but were they going to get affected by gamma and beta rays, and that we would get men to the moon and not have footage to show it? Nixon, a textbook paranoid, may well have commissioned such a thing, and nobody better than Kubrick. Set him up in a big sound studio in the Southwest, unlimited budget, and I fully believe that this happened. I should say I also believe that one of the main reasons that there is such a ferociously active "we never went to the moon" campaign is that some of the stills of the set actually a wide enough frame I've seen to show ceiling lights and to show problems with the shadows. Case closed on that. But the film was brilliant, and it opens in a green room with Henry Kissinger, National Security Advisor to George Bush Sr., Brent Scowcroft, a pantheon of major heavies going back to the 90s, and then talking, and then they cut to footage with Stanley Kubrick's widow. I was mesmerized, and when it was finished, he said, what do you think? I said, I think it may be real, but it could be a put-up job. He said, that's what I feel. I'm going to keep studying it, and I'll publish the results, and I'll let you know beforehand. And a few months later, he called me in New York and said, I've established it. It is a fake. Thanks for hearing me out. Why do I think that Graham wasn't murdered? And this got me in trouble with some of my dear friends and colleagues in Great Britain, because again, how could it be that this guy, not one of the most, but the most important guy, and I'll tell you how important he was, because of the contract I had with the Sci-Fi Channel to help promote the miniseries Taken with movers and shakers in New York City, in a very, very special closed event for almost 200 people. The director of special projects, who's a good friend of mine, Larry Landman, I introduced him to Graham and Graham's remarkable personality, won Larry over in an evening, and he hired him. If Graham had lived, he died in September, had he lived in October, he would have been touring all over India as the point man spokesman for the Sci-Fi Channel's upcoming Indian miniseries broadcast in Hindi, in English with Hindi subtitles, of Taken, the miniseries. But why do I think he wasn't murdered? Graham was overweight. Graham was a type A driven character. Work, 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 work. An insomniac like me. Not an alcoholic, definitely, but definitely a drinker. A chain smoker. Ate a heavy British diet. But most important, in a way, he had joked with me many years before that he thought he'd never live to be 50 years old. I said, why? He said, no man in my family, my uncles, my grandfathers, my father ever lived to be 50. It might have been programmed into his DNA. Then again, because he might have said that publicly sometime, and some darker forces within British intelligence said, we'll give the old cerebral aneurysm shot, and people will say, oh, well, even though we begrudgingly acknowledge, he died too young because of that. I don't know, but I think he died a natural death, and he's one of those people I miss tremendously. I was just joking with myself, and I said, oh, you can say, and our next victim, yes, our next and final victim is another shot of Graham and Christine and Helen. I stay in contact with Christine occasionally, but Helen and I are back and forth regularly. She married an American and lives just north of New York City, and is a great gal, not surprisingly. It's all leading to this man. Yes, that's right. A distinguished American psychiatrist whose unique credentials made him someone we in the abduction research community could point to with pride. He was best known for his research into how extraordinary experiences can affect personal, sociological, and global transformation, and his death as the victim of a traffic accident was immediately and more than understandably suspect by many who worked with him, cared for him, followed his work, or saw him as the towering figure that he was in UFO studies.
What's his name?
Dr. John Mack. Dr. Mack was a professor emeritus of psychiatry at Harvard College. He was the founder of the psychiatric wing of Cambridge Hospital, Cambridge Hospital outside of Boston. He was a Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer. He wrote a biography of T.E. Lawrence, a psychiatric biography of Lawrence of Arabia, and received the Pulitzer Prize for it. Some years before I met John, I knew who he was in a completely other way. In my work as a crisis intervention volunteer, working at the center on night shifts, sometimes you'd have periods of time when you had no callers, and we had a little library, not surprisingly, all books devoted to some aspect of psychology, and one of them was one of the most highly regarded books on adolescent suicide. And I read it over the course of quite a number of evenings. I was very impressed with it, but the name John Mack didn't mean anything to me then. It did a few years ago when he showed up at Bud Hopkins' studio to meet this painter who allegedly felt that aliens were abducting human beings. And as a psychiatrist, oh boy, this was somebody he sure wanted to meet. But learning that this irreplaceable individual just happened to be mowed down by a drunken driver as he crossed the street did not sit well with me and with a lot of other people. John came from a very socially connected, well-to-do, Fifth Avenue Jewish society family. He knew everybody, he went to the right schools, he was comfortable in any situation, formal or informal. He was gracious, gregarious, scholarly. I sometimes used to think of him as a brain on sticks, like Ichabod Crane, somebody who was so intellectual, so many important thoughts. They were hardly aware that they lived in the body. Like many people of his generation, a creature of the 60s, John really became more and more frustrated by Western philosophical models and started to look east for the answers, as many of us did as inquiring souls at about that time. And in fact, I think it affected his work in induction studies tremendously, where Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs saw a darkness, saw the problems, saw the trauma it caused people. I know with Bud that it was not a predisposition or an agenda. It was just that the huge majority of people that showed up to work with Bud over the years had been traumatized by their experiences. It's the way it was. Certainly some of these people showed up when John became a public figure, but his interest, his passion, his desire in the work was not that. There were other people to work with these people. He took them seriously. He treated them with respect. His focus was how can extraordinary human experiences, epitomized by the induction experience, be positively transformative. And what a noble goal that was. I knew people who worked with him and worked with Bud. I visited him in Boston, and at a very great point in my career in 1998, when I was a best-selling author and getting an awful lot of kudos, he said, "I want to get you a job speaking at Harvard." And I said, "Right. When flying saucers land on my lawn, then I will be speaking at Harvard." They did not land, and he could not get me in there. But he said, "I'll sponsor you. You're going to speak at the psychiatric wing of Cambridge Hospital." Way to go, all right. For my staff, for invited guests, and for open admission. And it was one of my most memorable talks. I had a wonderful time. But it was a two-part talk. He had me speak on the famous Rendlesham Forest UFO incident, and then joined me on stage at the second half of the presentation for a talk I called Managing Stress in UFO Studies. Your clients or the experiencers or the abductees, and God knows your home. And I will say that after the meal, after the event, John took myself, about a dozen of his associates, and my brother-in-law, who was free that weekend, and joined me at John's invitation. Jim being a physician who worked at Cornell University's clinic. And we're sitting at a round table at probably the most expensive Japanese restaurant in New England, having a wonderful meal, and John is just regaling us with stories. I mean, we all know people like this. They're magnetic, they're effusive, who just love them by nature. They're great storytellers, and they're always meaningful. And at a certain point, in kind of a lull, I'm sitting here, my brother-in-law is sitting here, John's sitting there. He turns to my brother-in-law and he says, "Jim, I owe you an apology." And Jim says, "Why?" He says, "I've been ignoring you all night. I know nothing about you except that you're his brother-in-law. Who are you? What do you do?" He said, "I'm a physician, primarily an internist. I work at the Cornell University clinic. My students are, my patients are students and faculty." John looks at him, his eyes get big, and he starts to laugh. And he starts to laugh harder. And we don't get what's funny. And he actually hits his knee, and tears are coming to his eyes, and he says to all of us, I'm sorry. You're a real doctor." That was John. Okay. Again, big questions that are asked. John's interest in UFO abductions was sparked by this meeting he had with Bud Hopkins in 1992. as John related it to me with a smile some years later, the idea that aliens, which is questionable to start with, were abducting people, and that the main propagator of this was a New York City painter, just neon sign, delusional approach with care, but fascinated. He made a meeting and he came to see it. It was life-changing for John. Bud was an artist, yes. He was the best self-trained investigative writer I ever knew, and his record-keeping was superb and scientific, and he opened it up to John, and they became close colleagues and friends. John befriended me in a way that caught me completely off guard. I know that my BFA in painting and film history from the School of Art, visual arts, must have impressed him tremendously. But the fact that a man of his stature treated me with such respect because I was Bud Hopkins' assistant, because I've been doing the work for years, because I knew something about it firsthand from growing up with a sister who had had these experiences. When he finished his manuscript for his important book Abduction, he gave copies to several people to read, find errors. It had obviously already been professionally proved. I could not find a semicolon out of place. There was no misspelling. It was a flawless manuscript except for one thing. He used pseudonyms for all the people in the book, except one. And I knew who it was. And it was a very special case involving, without going into any detail even now, a very ugly court case revolving around custody of an individual, and had this come to public knowledge about this individual, it could have been horrifically ugly. He was so thankful to me for finding that one error in the book. He inscribed my copy of the book for Peter, our #1 sleuth. Now, I knew what it was in reference to, but do you think that has stopped me from using that quote over time? Saying this is on that quote. Okay. Bud and John disagreed on certain things, but there is no question that they were absolutely devoted to each other. And their dialogue at Faneuil Hall in Boston on the abduction phenomenon is still the finest exchange recorded between scholars on this often exaggerated, misrepresented, terribly complex and debased subject that exists out there. I think it's probably somewhere on YouTube, and I've listened to it a number of times and been tremendously impressed by it. However, shortly thereafter that John became interested in the subject, Harvard, as a distinguished university, and I'm sure full of very self-important administrators, was horrified as more and more national and international attention, not to John Mack, Pulitzer Prize-winning psychiatric biographer of T.E. Lawrence, but John Mack, alien abduction researcher, was brought to bear and shown a light that they considered unwelcome on their university. And so, I think it was in 1994, John became the first faculty member since Timothy Good. Can you look at my reading glasses on?
5 minutes left.
Okay, I can do it. 5 minutes I can do it. It was the first time since Timothy Good was censured and lost his bid to stay at faculty member was kicked out. John came back with guns blazing, with a very good lawyer and proved to spare and Harvard welcomed him back with open arms. The exchanges between him and Bud at that point were, I'm back, but boy, I couldn't believe what they put me through, essentially. Me and Bud at some point. Great shot of Bud and John. Okay, this is the New York Times coverage of it. So, this brings us to the day in question of September 27th. 2004. John had traveled to England to lecture for the T.E. Lawrence Society. He gave a talk earlier in the day that was so well received. He was asked to give another talk later in the day. And he was crossing the street to, as I recall, have something to eat. And he stepped into the road, a drunken lorry driver came roaring around the corner. I don't want to get too graphic here, but he hit him so hard. John was dead in the air. There's no question in my mind. The lorry driver was on his 5th suspension. I, at the time, was less than 50 miles away. I was in Suffolk, and I had just called Nick Pope, a friend who I was going to be staying with in London, and we had kind of a banter sense of humor, and I said, he picked up the phone, his classic posh English voice, and I said some wise guy remarked, and he was absolutely quiet when he said, you haven't heard, John Mack was just killed by a drunken driver. I was floored, I was horrified. My first thought was, oh my God, he was murdered. He was murdered. When I got back to the States, I made it my business to do as thorough an investigation as I could. I got hold of all the court records. I got all the background information on the driver. I got the schematics for the location. I visualized a Manchurian candidate situation with a drunken driver waiting over here for maybe the possibility that Mac was going to cross the street at a certain time, with, say, a 3-person support intelligence team on the route, with earpieces, with mics. It couldn't have been engineered. It couldn't have been done. You know what happened? I've been to England 25 times, I'm sure, and I still sometimes look the wrong way when I cross the street. This has become such a problem that some years ago, not every street crossing, but almost every street crossing in every city in the UK, that's a wonderful letter that he wrote to Bud. Now that the matter of Harvard's questions about my work have been resolved amicably, I want to thank you for your help in the process. It meant a lot to me personally, and I believe for enabling the further exploration of understanding of the abduction phenomena. With best wishes, and then the line to it that says love. But, look, promo for my talk at the hospital, John again, London. This is what is now painted on the street corners. Look right, not left. I don't believe John was murdered. I believe it was a damn freak accident. In court, his family, tremendously progressive humanitarian people, ex-wife, kids, girlfriend, pleaded for understanding for the homicidal maniac whose reckless action caused their loved one's death because they recognized that alcoholism is a disease. True enough. The judge, and myself included, were not nearly as enlightened. He went to jail, but due to some very liberal guidelines in his sentencing, I think he was out 18 months later. But when all is said and done, with John, with Graham, with the people that I've gone through here in the most cursory manner, the real question and the real thing to remember is not how they died, but how they lived, what they did with their lives, what they achieved, the impact they had on other people. If we all become obsessed with how we're going to be checking out of this world, it's going to be a pretty sorry state. There's a wonderful old Sicilian proverb that I've heard in Sicilian, and so beautiful and poetic, a Sicilian dialect, but in English it's pretty good, which is living well is the best vengeance. Living well is the best revenge. So live well, enjoy yourself, be courageous. If you're involved in this work, just coming to conferences every once in a while, keep doing it. Educate yourself, educate your friends. If you're in the trade, so to say, keep up the good work. I think the forces that be are much better served by sending people like those we've discussed, myself, my colleagues, lots of vitamins, because if we were taken out, and it seems like it might be a dark scenario, attention will be drawn that is unwanted. Thank you for your attention and your time.
Thank you everyone for sticking around. Thank you for your grief.
people with parasitic attachments for over 30 years, and I thought, coming to this big festival here, I wanted to give you guys something different, and fortunately, I can bring it to you in the silver lace UFO and aliens, but I can also put a spin on it and probably show you something that you've never seen before, and things that you've never heard before too. So, for over 30 years, I've been helping people with these attacks in a different way than most people would look at them as demons. So they call the priest comes in and does, the holy water of the Bible and everything, or they call in a shaman and he does the smudging and stuff. And I started to realize a long time ago that very rarely does it work. And when it does work, it usually doesn't sustain. And the reason why it doesn't sustain is because of the person, and we'll get into that. So, I wanted to tell you a little bit about, how I started in all this, and how I started to formulate my theories and everything growing up. So for me, it all started in that beautiful apartment building in Leominster, Massachusetts. I lived on the top floor, and almost every night it seemed there would always be like this being in the corner of the room. And it first started looking like a man, then it would change, it would turn into something else, a cartoon character or whatever. It wasn't my imagination. I was seeing it. My mother saw stuff in the house. So it would be basically like that. It would just stare at me. And sometimes it would start moving towards me. I'd bury my head against the wall, between the wall and the mattress, And then one night, I went to the bathroom. I was head back towards my bed. And I felt hands on my shoulders. And I was being pushed or pulled down or pushed down. And I fell down, I got back up, I ran, I jumped in the bed, buried my head between the mattress and the wall, which I slept like that for many years after that. But when I got the courage to roll out and look into the room, I did so. And when I did, I started to fall asleep and I felt something touch my face. And when I opened my eyes, that's what I saw. Now then, we moved out of that house. We moved into a different home in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. Don't really have any memories there until we moved to San Antonio, Texas, when I was 7 years old. That's when this started happening, and it happened on a very regular basis. And by the way, this is the first time I'm really talking about this stuff, so it can be difficult. So what would happen is, I wouldn't even have to fall asleep. Sometimes I would just be in bed and all of a sudden just realize there was two of these things, one on either side of my bed. And the weird thing is, most of the time, or a lot of the times, there'd be a taller one in the back of the room, which I always thought was strange. For many years, I wouldn't talk about it because I didn't want people thinking I was crazy until I talked to Kathleen Martin years ago. And she goes, no, that's recorded. And what it was is this tall one, wears a purple cloak with a hood. And I always thought that was weird, but that's what it wore. And the two little ones would always, they'd be looking at me, then they'd look back at the big one, like, what do you want us to do? And then their hands would come up towards my head, and I would black out. And I don't remember. I don't know what happened. I don't know if they take me or what happened. I have no clue. All I know is it's very real. I would take any amount of lie detector tests. And but what started to happen was, during this time, my mother started finding me in the middle of the night or in the morning all around the house. She'd find me wrapped around the toilet, she'd find me in the bathtub, she'd find me on the counter, and also several times I'd be laying in bed at night and you start knowing when they're there, when they're coming. And I know some of you know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, it's outside my window, so I go over to the window, pull the curtain, and there'd be one probably like 20, 30 feet away from the window staring at me, talking to me in my head, and it would want me to come outside. I don't remember what happens after that. I just know I get the message. I don't remember after that. But one time my mother woke up, I woke up in the morning, and my mother said, do you know you tried to walk out of the house last night? You were sleepwalking, and you tried to walk out the door. She goes, I had to stop you. And that same night, when I blacked out, I saw this thing, I wanted me to go outside, I blacked out, and then that happened. So, the talking about this as well, first of all, it's because it's happened, we're at a UFO, festival, but to lead into really when things changed for me, first, as an adult, they continue to happen, but I don't see them like this anymore, mostly because I'm an adult and I sleep with the lights out, so I don't see faces as much as I've seen this. And if you were here earlier, during the radio show, I had said I had a picture of one of the shadow things that, try to sneak up on me from time to time. And for some reason, I feel that those ones that I've encountered are linked to my other experiences for some reason. I don't know why I feel that way, I just really do. So I'm just going to tell you the story, and you guys can take it from how you will, but for me, it's linked in some way. And when I started seeing these shadow beings, it's when I get too busy to help people with parasitic attachments. When I'm too busy in my life and I can't get to those people, then these people show up. And I always think that it's like, they're here to tell me to get back to what I'm supposed to be doing, and they show up, and it's kind of, they can be aggressive, but I think they're just trying to guide me, really. So, this is one that, you can't really see it too well here, but it was, I just felt that thing, you get that feeling. I turned real quick because I heard the thing coming at me, and I snapped a photo, and you can't really see it too well there. So, another thing as an adult, which I've heard some people talk about, that this is very real. This happened in my 20s into my early 30s, in 2 different homes, in multiple different rooms, no matter where I slept. What would happen is my drapes where I slept, and I was having experiences. I knew I was waking up, or not even, sometimes not even falling asleep, just boom, sleep paralysis. And I know what sleep paralysis is, a clinical explanation, or when I said a chemical, so we don't have dark dreams and hurt ourselves, such as in case of like night terrors. It paralyzes your muscular function. Also, sometimes your brain and your body are not in sync. So your brain wakes up, your body's still, out. And so I understand all that, but it can't always explain it. And so what would happen to me during this time is I started experiencing sleep paralysis nightly. Every time for me when I did, it was always the same. I would wake up and they're coming again, they're coming again, they're coming again. Not so much fearful, but very anxious and not having control. That really bothered me. So it was always like, they're here again, they're here again. And then I would black out. But during these experiences, what happened was my drapes in a 16-inch diameter, well, not my drapes, my blinds, which were alabaster color, in a 16-inch diameter would start to turn pink, and they started sagging, like they were melting. And it didn't matter where I slept, it would only happen to the one nearest my head or my foot. And this happened in 2 different homes in multiple different rooms while I was having these experiences. One time also, I woke up, I had fallen asleep on the couch. I woke up and I was on my left side, and I'm like, they're here again, and I'm boom, sleep paralysis. I can't move. If I can get my arm up just high enough and drop it behind me, it'll force my body to turn around because I know they're behind me. I know it. So I get that to happen. I start to roll over. I see a black mass come at me, and I feel like I'm sucked through a vacuum, literally like bash. I black out in the process. I never feel myself hit, but I felt myself going through the air for at least 2 seconds, and I black out. I woke up hours later. I was 15 feet away from the couch. I had cleared the coffee table. So if I just rolled off the couch, I would have fell between the couch and the coffee table. I was 15 feet away, and that was a very, very real experience. But getting back to this, rewinding a little bit to the age of 10, I lived in this home. And my room was somewhere on the right and towards the back. I'm going to try to leave a few details out of this. I don't want to implicate anybody, but I got very sick as a child. And there was no real reason why. I just got really sick and I couldn't go down food or liquid for almost a month. And my parents both mother and stepfather were a little too busy. And so I was kind of like shoved in a room, basically, and I couldn't move. I was so weak. I couldn't move my eyes, my fingers, and just had no nourishment. So And I remember just being aching and alone all the time. And then things started to happen. Like if I was hot and I felt the wind blowing outside, I were ready for a storm, and the window would open up on its own, you know, things like that. Spiritual weird things like that, or somebody was there helping me, basically. And I remember just one night laying there, and all of a sudden, all that went away. The achiness went away, the sick feeling went away, and I felt great. And then I realized, this is where it gets weird. There was a guy sitting by the foot of the bed, or more towards my knee area, like he's sitting on something. There's nothing to be sitting on. I don't know what he's sitting on, but he's there. And what was strange about him, and I've never talked about this part in my lecture before, because mostly I've been doing a lot of paranormal events. Over the last couple of years, I've been doing a lot of UFO. I've been doing ufology forever. You can't do one of these subjects on a high level without dealing with them all. You're going to run into them all. We'll get into that too. So what was strange about this guy was it looked like a human being trying to look way too hard like a human being, and trying way too hard to look like American, you know, or something. Well, he had dark skin though, but just he had a red and black flannel shirt on. It looked like real fresh and clean. His hair was just looked like a helmet. It didn't look real. It really off about it. And when he talked to me, and when he talked to me, it was also in my head. And I could hear him in here, just like I was wearing a pair of headphones. And he said, this is happening for a reason. He said, we've been trying to reach you through dreams. And I knew, like, at the time, I didn't put it together, but in retrospect, when I got a little older and more mature, I understood what he was talking about. I always had a recurring dream since the time I could remember as a little kid of being at a campsite with my mother and my siblings and stuff, and there was this really wide, raging river, and it just raging. But on the other side, there's a group of people, and they're all nationalities, they're all different beings and everything there, and they're all like celebrating, and it's like they're happy I'm there, and they want me to come over, right? And every time I try to go, my mother would always say, "Oh, you can't go there." She'd pull me into the camper. Now, I had that dream almost every day, over and over and over again. And I think that's what he was referring to. I didn't realize it at the time. But he says, we're trying to reach you through dreams, but we weren't able to do that, so now this has to happen. He says, you're being brought here so you're tuned, so we can tune you so you can come back here and we can help people. You're going to be forever connected now. And you know what he meant? I started putting that together later on when I started to really investigate this stuff and help people. He also told me a bunch of other things about the mechanics of what allows and initiates these attachments. These aren't angry ghosts. They're not angry Uncle Joe. He's mad because you inherited his house and you painted his cabinets. It's not that. They're not haunting homes. They're haunting people. They're attached to people and they're actual life forms. So they need three things from us. That it initiates it. It also allows us to continue and escalate. And those are the three: fear, negativity, attention, and obsession. But more, rather than negativity, it's more of a vulnerable emotional state of being, a lower emotional frequency. I'm going to keep using that word. Frequency is key to all of this, to everything. So there's a few ways that they're going to attach themselves to us, or what initiates it and attracts them. And one thing they need from us is attention, which almost always, once they start doing stuff to us or in our homes or whatever, we almost all become obsessed with it. What are they going to do next? What are they going to do? You can't shut it off. It's controlling your internal dialogue. That's what they want. They want disruption. They want control. And we get almost everybody gets it to them. So the thing with the attention, that's why these Ouija boards work. They're not magical mystery things. They're not like some evil, horrible. They're nothing but plywood and plastic and, compressed paper. So what it is a tool that focuses your attention on a possibility of an interaction. And when you do that, you're telling them, saying, yes, I'll play with you. Let's play. I'm gonna give you attention. Let's play. So that's one of the things that I have to eliminate, and we're going to talk about how this ties into frequency. and how it ties into my alien, visitations and everything. So, one way I like to put it is, say you're on the telephone and you're talking to a friend and you're trying to have a conversation, your child is tugging at your shirt, your pant like, mommy, 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 or daddy, 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 and you stop your conversation and you say, well, honey, and if you do that, they're gonna interrupt you whenever they want. But if you gesture to them away, finish your conversation, the kid's gonna either learn to wait or go play somewhere else. And that's the same thing with these things. You ignore them, they're gonna go play somewhere else. Fear is the ultimate thing. We talked about this on the show. Fear is the ultimate goal for this. This is where they want to take you. This is where they're the strongest. It's almost like they're fueled by it. But what it is not only that it's energizing them, it's more, and I found this, all these emotional things that we're talking about, all these emotions, they're tuning us to them, so we're connected like two-way radios now. So if our emotional state is lower, we're in a lower place, a vulnerable state, or a fear level, then our frequency, and they are measurable frequencies, are down here. But if we're happy and we're loving and we're more positive, we're up here. They can't connect. It's on a different bandwidth. It's a different frequency. But if we're in a bad spot, now that's where that thing is. Now we're connected. So it's actually almost like a two-way radio. Think of it that way. So you have to be on the same frequency. And when we are given, when we're fearful or we're negative, we're in a lower place and we're connected to them. That's how they can mess with us. And I'll tell a nice story about that in a minute. So the low emotional frequencies, it's everything. And not only does did you know that when you're in a lower state, you're in a depressed state, you're in fear or whatever, you're at a measurable level, they measure through hertz or whatever, and you're actually you're going to be equivalent to the vibrational frequencies that cancer gives off, that other mold and other parasitic life forms give off. That's what these entities are. They're also parasitic. They're big sometimes, and they're strong, and they'll mess up your whole house. And so it's much different than mold, mildew, or cancer. But my point is the same. They're all in the same frequency. So that's not a coincidence. And I'll give you a good example of that in a second. And real quick, this is, depressed brain versus depressed brain versus not depressed brain. And here's the measurements of the human body. We're cold and flu stars. We had cancer down there at 42. These are measurable frequencies. And when we're in a bad place, we're going through something dramatic or whatever, we're no longer in the 62 to 78. We're down here. We leave ourselves susceptible to cancer and other things. We're now susceptible to also parasitic-like attachments, life-form attachments. So this is a story I want to tell you about. This case here is where I met Paulino 20 years ago. Ben was about this big, and it was in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, 1998. And I got contacted by a gentleman who was in his mid to late 50s at the time, and he said, I really, really need your help. And he said, I'm being attacked. I got something really bad happening to me. And I said, sure. So we chatted. He goes, but I got another investigator here too that's been helping me for the last 2 years that's been coming over. So he said, his name's Paulino. And at the time, I didn't know him, and I've always worked alone. Paul had always worked alone. And I said, well, if he doesn't mind that we can work together, I'll come down. And so he says, so I asked him, and Paul said, yeah. He goes, oh, Paul, he's a real nice guy. So I went down. First time I went there, Paul was not available, so I was there. And he met me outside. He goes, it's almost like I knew you were coming. He goes, because things were really quiet. Now they've been going nuts the last half hour. And so I walked up, we were on the porch, we walked into the entryway. There was an apartment building door to the right, there was a basement door to the back, and his apartment was to the left. We walked in that door, he walked on the other side of the room. and a lamp flew off his desk, you know, probably a good 10 to 15 feet, hit him in the leg, and he goes, "See, that's what I'm been dealing with." He said so nonchalantly, I knew for a fact he's been dealing with a whole lot more, a whole lot worse for a whole lot longer of the time. Because most people have to send him out the door, you know, but for him, it's like, see, you know. And so basically, make a long story short, actually, we witnessed all kinds of other stuff there too. There was a gentleman who was older than me, but he wanted me to mentor him in the paranormal, and told me, he misled me, told me he was very experienced, he'd been doing it forever. He said, but you seem to have a good understanding, I'd like to learn from you, and, you know, from your reputation and everything. So I met with him in coffee lunch, and I invited him on this case. It was a big mistake. So I'm a lot more picky when I do that now, because what he witnessed sent him so out of his mind. He got stuff falling home. I had to fix him in his situation. And it took a while, because he had a paranoid personality type, which is not the right type to be doing this type of work. And long and short, I cut him off. I said, you can't do this work anymore. I had him back on track. He decided to open up a website and start doing his own research and helping other people. He ended up losing his wife. He had a 6-figure job he lost. He lost his home. He's living in a trailer home in Lowell, Massachusetts today. And just from what he witnessed in this house, and because he thought he believed in it, thought it was real, but when he felt it, he felt something wrapped around him. He felt, he saw light displays in the basement in front of him. He became paralyzed actually at one point where he couldn't move or talk. It was all one. This is the gentleman that was being attacked. And you can see the weird light band on his leg. So that door, there's a bathroom door to the right, and to the left, right there is the bedroom, and you can see the side of the bed pillow. At one point, he was sitting in the chair over here, but he had it turned diagonal towards that door. And I don't know if Paul was that day either, but I was there, and I was looking over where I was talking to him face to face, and the door was behind him. And I started to realize something was going on in his bedroom. It looked like heat off the pavement. Everything was swirling around. It wasn't just raising up. It looked like the same effect from heat off the pavement, but it was swirling. And I couldn't see anything in his room. So at the time, I had a Sony Mavic camera, which was awesome back then, right? Cost me like almost $900. And 1.3 megapixel. Took a floppy disk. And so I started firing at that bad boy, and I started walking towards the door, and I was standing in the doorway, and I can't see nothing. I still get this effect going on. And it started to dissipate, and I started to see something bobbing out from the back of his van. And when it cleared out a little bit, I saw a being staring at me, and it kept going back and forth from behind his van that was set up on top of a storage bin. And I can tell you one thing right now, the thing was afraid of me. I could tell it was really afraid of me because it knew I had his number, but it hated my guts. I couldn't tell you how much hate I felt from this thing. Hate, pure hate. But it just didn't want any part of me, you know. So, another story, and I'll show, actually I just took a picture, but my next slide. This poor gentleman, one thing that he would encounter, besides being scratched and things being missing and noises and all kinds of things, this lady rising up from the corner of his room, which is in the area where I took the photo of this being. And I hope you're going to be able to see it in this. It might be too blown out, but we'll see. I hope you can see it. But he would wake up in the middle of the night, open his eyes, he's laying on his back, open his eyes, and he would be looking straight at this. He said a disfigured lady, face inches from his face. One time he called me, he said, "Shane, you gotta get down here." And I had just left that night. I went home, pretty much ate, went to bed. He called me right away in the morning, "You gotta get back down here." That happened. He described this. I ran into the bathroom, and he got in a fetal position. This is a Vietnam vet. This is a war hero, laying in a fetal position on his bathroom floor for an hour and a half. Finally decides to get up, slapped the water on his face, looked in the mirror. He went completely gray, completely white. I thought it only happened in movies. He was salt and pepper when I left. I went back there. He went from looking like he was in his mid-50s to over 100 years old. And this is just a simple photo, but what's interesting about it, and the reason why I chose to show it, is Paul got a lot of photos like this too, of windows where it looks like energy's coming out of the windows of this place. Now, what's interesting about that, you can say that's a reflection, but you can see that reflection is within the shadow of the door. So I believe it's the same type of image that Paul was capturing. And we got some too, you know. But this photo here is the one I took. You're probably not going to be able to see it until I show the explanation. Because you still have that heat off the pavement effect that's still kind of there, which made it blurry, and we're dealing with the 1.3 megapixel. But I circled the face there, that's the fan, and here's the explanation. So the hair, I have his mouth, and then if you look back over there, you might be able to make it out. But I can assure you, that didn't just show up on my floppy disk. I was staring at this thing, face to face. Yeah, you see, this is where the heat off the pavement, this is what was left, but it had filled the whole room. But this is the corner where the thing would rise up all the time, like right here. And he had a picture of Mother Mary there too, but the thing would still rise up right up here. But yeah, this effect here was what was left of that, you know, the heat off the pavement. So that's why you can't really see it too well. But, So, what we did was I asked Norman, I said, how long have you lived here? This is how simple this was. He had his Roman Catholic priest go in, did a thing, it got worse. The priest came back, went to do it again, wouldn't step back in the house. He goes, Norman, I'm sorry, I can't go back in because when I left here last time, I had things happening in my house, and I got sick, and I'm sorry, I can't. He left. Norm was also part Native American. He had a shaman go in there and try to do like a smudging ritual and all that. It didn't work. Now the reason why those tactics usually don't work, or when they do work, the reason why they work is because it has a positive effect on the individual. And if it doesn't have a positive effect on the individual, it doesn't change the root cause and the thing comes back, or it just remains. Now, what I'm talking about is if it doesn't raise your emotional frequency and bring you out of the place that you're in. Now, the problem with this guy was simply this. I said, how long have you lived here? He said, my girlfriend's lived here for 11 years. I've lived here for 6 years. I said, how long have you been being attacked? He said, only the last 2 years. Right? What happened 2 years ago? That changed something life-altering or dramatic happened in your house, maybe to change this environment or to change you internally. Something had to have happened to trigger this. That's the root cause. That's what we need to treat, not the entity. We need to treat the root cause to break the connection, right? So he said, well, actually, it started happening 3 weeks after I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer is pretty much a death sentence, right? So he's put on medicine, can't work, and so he's just sitting at home, just thinking of the fact that he's probably going to die. Also a Vietnam vet that saw his body blown up in front of him. So he's sitting at home just thinking about all this negative stuff. He was also a recovering alcoholic, so he's struggling. Now he's in this dark place. He's struggling not to go back to that alcohol, right? So he's just in a very lower emotional state, connected with this entity. This thing says, pops in and starts just attacking him. They want to bring him to the fear factor, and they did. I mean, they tormented him terribly. So what's a quick, simple fix? Splash of water around, or light the grass on fire? No, we need to treat the root cause. So we, in a sense, reverse engineer his harm. Let's find where it started. Let's treat it. So I said, it's as simple as this. I said, just you got to find something that occupies your mind with positive things, so you're not thinking about the negative things. And that way, automatically, his emotional state of being, his frequency starts to raise. So I said, volunteer soup kitchen, do anything that makes you feel good, go take walks, just do something that keeps your mind active, your internal dialogue on good things. So you're not thinking about the bad stuff. So he volunteered at a soup kitchen, and he also led a fight to save the oldest stone church in Rhode Island from being torn down. For some reason, they had this thing scheduled to be torn down. And he was all about Evan's church, and he was on the front page of the paper, he was on the nightly news. So he had to drive, he had purpose, he had some positive, keeping the negative thoughts out of his head. Not only did the entity just disappear like that, his cancer disappeared at the same time. No sign of it on an x-ray at all. He's still alive today. At least that's 2015. We're talking from 1998 to 2015, we got an update saying he was still alive. He's in a nursing home, but he's still alive. This is not the first case that happened to me. That's one out of 3 cases where the cancer had disappeared that I've dealt with. That's not a coincidence. There's something that connects that. I just want to bring this one up too real quick, just kind of like help validate what I'm saying. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Dr. Royal, right? All right. So he created a frequency generator, and he had documented over 1,000 people that he cured cancer back in the 20s and 30s. And a university in California actually did a follow-up on all of his patients. And at first they documented an 86-point-something% success rate that people were still cured, but it was only because they didn't get to interview all of them. And then later on got to interview the rest of them, and it turned out that he had 100% cured all those people that he claimed that he cured, and they were still cured of cancer. And the way he did it was by injecting higher frequencies to the point of where the cancer was killing it, because it could no longer thrive in that, there was no longer that lower frequency for it to thrive in. Just like with cancer, cancer of these entities, it's the same thing. Raise the frequency, break the connection. Raise the frequency, kill the cancer. They're all parasites.
What kind of frequency? What electromagnetic?
Our bodies vibrate. Our bodies vibrate. So it's the vibrational frequencies of our body. Our organs have their own frequency. Our bodies have their own frequency. Everything has its own frequency. And actually, the highest frequency thing, the organic, the most highest organic is essential oils, and rose oil is the highest organic thing as far as vibration frequency. It rates at like 320 hertz.
What is that?
Rose oil. Yeah, look up when you look up frequencies and essential oils.
You had showed a chart that showed different frequencies that corresponded to genius all the way down to death. What are they measuring that with? What machine or apparatus or?
Yeah, I don't know what machines they use, but these are scientific facts. I can't, I'm trying to think of the name of the doctor that I actually got that from, but it's a known fact. I mean, look it up, because I don't have a lot of time to get into all that, because I want to get to the good stuff, but it is a scientific fact.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
I just didn't know.
I just know what machine they use. Yeah.
Okay.
You're at a higher.
Okay.
Yeah. But
I'd like to know if you meditate, you're at a high frequency, not a low frequency.
yes, a higher frequency. And spirituality, is the highest measure. But I'll leave time for questions at the end. So, what's strange is there's areas that are more likely to host all these things, and this is why we said they're all connected in some way, somehow. But we're investigating all kinds of paranormal flat areas. There's paranormal flat areas all around the United States. There's one in Connecticut that we've been dealing with this since the early 2000s. There's one in Pennsylvania we've been dealing with. And in these areas, they're seeing a lot of UFO sightings. There's multiple haunted houses, and there's also Bigfoot and other weird sightings, all in this area. So there's something that is allowing these, whether they're multiversal crossovers or what, but there's something that's attracting or allowing these things to take place in these areas. And what I started to notice over the years is every single one of these highly charged areas that had all this stuff going on were all surrounded by rivers and streams. And somebody brought that up during the radio show about, around rivers and streams, do you see more UFO sightings? Absolutely. You see also a lot of those that are coming out of the fly over here. But yeah, every single one of them. The one in Connecticut, this is really cool. So we think that the government's also aware that some of these flap areas in there, they're trying to tap into whatever all these other things are tapped into, in order to come through or whatever. And so there was this dairy farm within this flap area of Connecticut that had no cows, no farming going on, but there was always vehicles there. Definitely activity. We started seeing military helicopters and stuff coming from, or black helicopters, I should say, correction. Just black unmarked helicopters coming from that area, so we drove up that way. We found this whole area, and it just seemed really strange to us because there was no farming going on. There was nothing. But what was strange was they tore it down. They covered that land with metal sheeting, and they started excavating underneath the ground, which I had slides of that, but I don't have them here. This is where it gets funny. So they start excavating, you start having transformers and stackmen sticking up out of the prairie. There's two people that we sent over that way to kind of check in on it when we weren't in the area, who were told to leave by men in military fatigues and machine guns. So, pretty much confirmed. We also asked somebody that we knew that had a high clearance to check up on it. He did, and he says, here's what I'll tell you, back off. And we did. So, they end up building the barn the same way that it was. This is actually after it was rebuilt. So they built it back the way it was before. And, more strange things started happening over there. So what we did was, I started doing research on the land. There was a big radio tower that was put up. It was 30 days after it was purchased by the new owners. Big radio tower. Look it up. Registered to the Army Corps of Engineers. Wait a minute. So I was also doing a lecture here in New Hampshire on the other side of the state, and now I'm in New Hampshire. This is in Connecticut. I did the lecture, and when I was done, I had talked about this. This guy runs up to me. He goes, "Was this in Goshen, Connecticut?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I installed radio equipment over there, high-tech stuff." He goes, "I had no idea why I was installing this stuff over there. It made no sense. Top-of-the-line stuff at a farm." And he goes, "I never saw anybody, never dealt with anybody. I just got my contracts, and I did it." He goes, "But I always thought that was strange." So I look into who purchased the land, right? Because nobody could find it. So I looked into it myself, and I found out who purchased the land. I won't say names of people, but it was a man and a woman, and I got their names, and then I started looking at them. I started seeing, I ran into a court order, or they were being sued for something or whatever, and then I started finding other things, like contracts from the military with their names listed on it. So then I find out that they own this. Now the military, if they're going to buy a piece of property for a weird reason, they want to keep, out of the public's knowledge, they're not going to buy it under their own name. They're going to have one of their contractors buy it. And I think that's what is happening here. They also bought a bunch of other land recently, because I just looked into it prior to this, and they bought a bunch of other land nearby this property that where the barn is. And what was odd too is I did further search just last week, or this week. They're not even a married couple, they're brother and sister, and their father is the one that owns this company, and they don't run it. So it's kind of weird that you buy a piece of property where your sister, you know, you know. So here's other stuff that's happening in this flat area in Connecticut. There was this whole neighborhood that alarms started being set off, like nothing's being stolen, there's no broken, there's no forced entry, you know. So somebody in this home, that the one I'm going to show you in a minute, contacts a house that we were investigating. There was a book written about it called The Haunted House Diaries, which I was in and everything. And they contacted him, contacted the people of the home, I'm sorry, that were the subject of the book, had friends, and they contacted the people of this home and said, hey, you guys have investigators over there, send this photo to someone you trust and let us know what he says. They sent it to me, and I'm like, that's weird. And I don't have the original, and I wish I did, but it's really bizarre. And basically, their security came and took a picture sent to their phone. They met the cops at the house. No forced entry, all the doors, windows locked. Nobody inside the house, nothing missing. But they got a weird creature standing. I'll give you the explanation so you can see it. There's a weird creature standing in front of cabinets, and it's got its right arm on the countertop, and you'll see the left elbow bent behind it, and it's looking down. You'll see the eye underneath its head, and I'll give you different versions. There's that. There's the right arm. And then close up. So, and behind it's just a black refrigerator. So, I mean, there's no explanation for this, and I just wish I had a better quality photo because I know it's real. And then also, the subject of that book I just told you about, she was sitting in her house one day and she heard something going on in her kitchen. Her kitchen was crazy active. She took a photo in the direction of the kitchen, and I know because I spent nights in this house. Her kitchen was nuts. Well, she caught what she told us. It looks like 2 time periods in her photo, and she would also see aliens in her house. She'd wake up and see an alien standing in her bathroom. It wasn't just ghosts, you know. This is what we're talking about. These flat areas can host anything. Anything can come through. That's why I think aliens don't just, or you know, whatever we want to call them, they don't just come here through UFOs. I think they can utilize multiversal techniques. So she takes a picture, and she's talking about 2 time period overlaps that she can see in the photo. We couldn't make it up because we don't know what it looked like in 1960 something. But we were talking about on a radio show back in like 2015, and so this person from Indiana said, "You're talking about that overlap, the light effect in the middle of the photo. Well, what about the gray alien standing in the doorway? Like, what are you talking about?" Oh man, it shows this photo too, but so you can see. And that again, behind that is just a white refrigerator. And then it's got some weird effect coming off of the thing. And what's strange too, when a lot of these things come through, prior to what people would think is a poltergeist or someone, you know, a lot of people that will encounter this in their house. Prior to that sometimes there's a loud snap, like a pop in the house, like a static, you know, and then things start to change, you know, and then these things come through. Also, sometimes there's the visual effect, like heat off the pavement will come through. I've seen that so many times at homes. You'd be in a room, and all of a sudden you'll see that thing start to form, and then stuff starts happening in the house. It's like something is breaking through somewhere, the multiverse possibly, another parallel needle or whatever. And I'll show you a couple more photos. You probably haven't seen them too well on the screen, but so back in the late 90s, I developed an idea that if we could, because you know, we only see a certain light spectrum. There's a light spectrum that we can't visualize, we can't see. That's why animals can see things that we can't. You know, they'll stare at the corner of the room or try to jump up and bite something that we can't see, but they're ground, they know something's there. They see a different light spectrum. So I said, you know what, I think not only that, but with rivers and streams, I think they can help host the haunt. if for some reason they're creating that flat environment that allow things to come through, they're also helping to break to attract things. But I thought it was much more than that. And it's not just because water is a conductor, you know, and I said that I know it's more than that. Maybe it's manipulating light, maybe it's manipulating energy, maybe it's manipulating frequencies in order for us to converge with them. So I said, let's start with the light. Maybe if I can manipulate light, we can capture images of something that we can't see. So we started to get them. And again, picture qualities back then weren't real good. I want to pick this work up again because I started reviewing some of my old photos. These were taken, the one I'm going to show you were all taken by Mike Sullivan, who was a team member of mine at the time. But I'm going to start revisiting this with better quality cameras. But basically with this this photographic technique, it would manipulate the light and change it in a way that might make us be able to see something. And so we started getting weird things like this creature here, like being Kathleen Martin was like, oh my God, when she saw it. I don't know if you can make it out. But you see the like alien head here, arms, shoulder, neck, nose, mouth. I was worried it was going to be whited out from here, but you all make it out. It's basically, the technique was to use reflective surfaces that were imperfect, so when the light hit it, it would bend it or change it, like it would go in when water passes, light passes through water. Well, I was trying to like recreate that, and hopefully we could actually capture something that is outside of our visual spectrum. And we started getting things that didn't make sense to the room we're in, and a close-up of that one. And we got, this one's kind of blurry, but it looks almost like a Sasquatch creature. I just thought I'd throw it in there. And then like one of the older man, I don't know if you could make it out. And this one's really cool because this next one is a picture that was sent to Paul's radio show, or sent to Paul through a radio listener, and said, hey, you gotta check this out. It was this guy and his buddy, old college mates, and they had a reunion together, and they were at this pub, and they were by themselves. They were the only ones in the pub. And the glass had one of their old college sayings on it, and they thought it was really cool. So like, what a coincidence. So they took a picture of the glass, and they got, you might not see it right away, but trust me, when you see it, you'll be like, wow, there's a woman standing there. So what makes that possible is just a manipulation of light, and these things exist around us, we just can't see them. I mean, I know the Santilli telescope is very controversial, but I see some of the images that thing gets. Are you guys familiar with the Santilli telescope? Oh no? Okay. So basically, they developed, a telescope, I think back in like 2011, and they were looking, it has a special concave lens, and also utilizing ultraviolet rays and all that, and they were looking for dark energy or antimatter of the universe. But what they started to notice is extraterrestrials flying around in our own atmosphere. Some of them appearing like streaks or whatever, but then around like power plants and within thunderstorms, there were these pods all over, almost like gathering energy, it seemingly. We don't know for sure, but just, things that we can't see with our own eyes are kind of showing up. Some scientists, they balk at it, but I find it interesting. There's something to it. So I can't say for sure what, but look it up. I think it's pretty cool. So then, Pennsylvania, flat area, we're dealing with again all kinds of things. There was three homes on this property. One had shadow people bothering and tormenting the people. One, they said the shadow person was so tall I had to duck in the room. They were seeing Bigfoot creatures since the 50s, but they've been seeing UFO sightings constantly. V-shaped and an orange one. And I got really poor quality photos of both the ones that they saw. And it just, for you guys it'll be inconclusive, but I was looking at them with my own eyes. So here, the tree line is actually here. So this is right above the tree line. And then this V shape is actually, it was actually like a triangle. And then the tree line is here. And then here's that heat up the pavement effect. This is on the flat area in Pennsylvania. And this was taken on the trail cam, but I know this is a spot that's really active. They see things manifest here constantly. And so I really believe that this thing, my trail cam takes 3 pictures in a row, boom, boom, boom. It only appeared on this one photo. So if it was like a raindrop or something like that, which I know it wasn't, because it wasn't raining, it would have appeared on all 3. But this is actually where the homeowner's grandfather's encountered a Bigfoot creature, he said. But this is a property that sees a lot of UFO traffic. This was, you can't see here, I was zoomed all the way out with a Canon power shot, and I didn't, but that was a brushed nickel disc that I was looking at. And orbs, dust can make orbs, right? Raindrops can make orbs, but it's the orbs that are visual to the eye that we were talking about earlier. That could be different colors that show up in these areas. They show up in people that do Bigfoot sightings. I just started the show, which I'll tell you guys more about on YouTube, and I hope that you guys would go on and subscribe, help me out, because I just started out, this is my first announcement of it. I got one interview up, but I got a lot of really good people, a lot of UFO people, a lot of big names that are already locked down that I'm going to be interviewing, and I think I can give it style that you guys will enjoy it. But I asked this one Bigfoot researcher, who I'm going to re-interview, we had a little discussion one time, and I said, he runs Cryptovania, there's a Roku channel, and he's pretty successful. Anyways, I said, so in your work, when you're out in the fields, how often do you run into, orbs, light orbs, or UFOs? Because a lot of Bigfoot researchers say that they do. And we find in the flat areas, you're going to run into everything. He goes, well, and he almost didn't want to answer it. He goes, we tried really hard to separate the two, but we're not successful at it. It's western Pennsylvania, like northwestern. Trying to think of the name of the county. We don't want to give the name of the town just yet. I can't think of the name of the county, but it's like northwestern. And then, I think, plenty of time for some questions too. I want to talk about my house because we've been experiencing some weird stuff since we moved back. It's not just our house; it's just basically whatever's been connected to me my whole life. It's kind of picked back up for me. And one night, and this sounds strange, how can one person experience all this? But like I said, I'll take a lie detector test. This is really weird. I told my wife about it a million times. She shot me, but my wife was there. But I got up, it was like 2:36 in the morning. I go to the master bath, and I don't turn on the light or the fan because I don't want to wake her up. She works really hard, she gets up earlier than I do. And I shut the door, pitch dark in there. It's a full moon outside, so I can see everything out there. And there's a window behind the toilet, and I noticed something. There's something staring at me. I'm like, what? It was weird looking, and it was like staring up at me, and I'm initially thinking, well, what the hell is this? But also, it shouldn't be able to see me because I'm in pitch dark. This thing's in light, and plus the moon was probably in its face, but it was staring right at me, and it looked from side to side, and it looked back up at me, and I'm thinking, and I watched it for a little while, just watching me, and it looked every once in a while, and what was weird was, I'm like, it looks familiar, but it was orangish. Its face was kind of orange, and I never heard that before. With weird things. And then I looked it up. There actually have been a lot of sightings of that. But it looked like this guy. You guys will know who this guy is. It looked very similar to him, but he was orange. That's all I can say. Same kind of clothing. That guy. Big head. Real big head. that, you know, your typical parade drums, you know, or whatever, really don't have tapered down, and that's what I was looking at. But again, it's kind of orange. And I didn't go down there. I said, you know, I could go down there. The thing's probably going to be gone. Whatever. I went to bed. So I get up the next morning, and we have a German Shepherd, and he was kenneled that night at the foot of our bed, so he had no access to the windows or nothing like that. He was in the kennel. Before and after I saw this thing, I got up in the morning and let him out. He never, at that point, never runs down anything, because the previous owner started to put like fill in our backyard to taper the window to level the land off, but he only went so far, so there's a point where it drops off like 6 feet, and it's just behind our chicken coop. And so the dog never goes down there. He does his business in the regular yard. He never goes down into the embankment. Well, that morning he did. He never even stopped. He ran right down there. And this is a picture I took of him that morning. This is not a reenactment. And he was standing, he was sniffing the same spot where I saw this thing stand. And he wouldn't come off of it for like 20 minutes. That's exactly where it was standing. So these next series of photos, there's 3 here. 2 days after that, what I did was I set up some trail cameras. And I set them further back from where I saw this thing standing. I said, well, this way I can capture it, and maybe, and I wanted to get the view of my house too. And above my house, there's nothing there. You can only see sky from that angle. And it took, for some reason, because there was some branches in front of it, 1,019 photos that night. And I got this in 3 photos. And the only thing, what I do with all my work, I've been doing this for over 30 years. So what I do if I capture any kind of image that I think is bizarre, I try to reenact it or recreate it. And the only thing that I use to recreate a photo like this is copper or a strand of hair, but usually that takes up the whole length of the photo. But this. And that wasn't the opening. This one I would say, well, I'm not sure. I know I could recreate it, and it wasn't bugs. That one takes bugs. The bugs would have to be real close, and it would be really whited out. This one, where it fades out behind that branch, and the 2 middle ones, it's not as light, and that's because the infrared signal is being stolen from the leaves that branch is in front of it. So that tells me that most likely behind that. So that would be too far away to be a dog or a bug. And then the same night, just I think 20 minutes after this photo was taken, I captured this photo, which I think is really cool. You can't see it here. It's kind of dim here, but I knew it was going to be this way, so I made a real high contrast. But we're talking about something that's right there. And because it's so dim, I know it's not, I know it's far up in the sky, and you'll see in a minute. So here's a close-up of it. Now, what's interesting about that photo is not too long before that, I had almost 30, I live in New Ipswich, and next town over is Jaffrey, New Hampshire. I had almost 30 reports, one being a police officer, from people that know what I do. They come up to me in the convenience store, and I'll pump your gas, and they all reported seeing what they thought was it. At first, like, the moon is all bright tonight, and they look up, and they said, this gigantic, none of these people know each other, they're describing the same thing, this gigantic, massive thing up in the sky, not round, more disc shape or oval shape, but they said absolutely huge. And now what they were kind of describing, similar, that was much higher than this guy, but I think it's probably might be the same thing that they saw. They just saw a closer version of it. And cops, I find, they don't exaggerate things. They tell it the way they see it. That's what they're trained to do, and that's what this guy didn't sleep for 2 weeks. This gone. It screwed the whole belief system up. And what was strange was, hours after that UFO was seen by those people, there was 3 fighter jets that flew treetop level at a very high rate of speed. I was in town, I heard, they were just out of range for me to see them, but they were just, right over the treetops. They blew off a countermeasure flare over Hancock. That was the direction of which the people reported seeing this giant massive thing was over, they all said over the direction of Hancock. Was that a coincidence that they flew over there and shot off a countermeasure flare accidentally, in the same direction? I don't think so. But I called Massachusetts and New Hampshire Air Guard and Reserve, and they all said no. We had nothing in the skies at all at that time frame. But then Massachusetts Guard retracted that statement and said, yes, we did. We inadvertently set off the countermeasure flare. And this was one I took just a week or so ago of a disc above my house. Oh, really? Yeah, maybe. So this was one that I took. There's 2 photos, 2 different photos of a disc on the left side of my house. This one's on the in front of my house. Yeah, it did, yeah. This one, it looked different. This one was more like, I don't know. And then this one was taken during the day with my cell phone, so this next one. So all I saw was a bright light. Now I had seen 3 reflective discs last fall, I think it was, in the same direction that I recorded these, but now this was weird because this was trying to, do these things just fly in here from somewhere else, or can they just, boom, up here, And what I was driving up over my house, and I saw one just over a hilltop, and there was a power line there, and you could see the top of like a hill, and it was just stationary. So I pull over it, and then one comes up from the background and parked next to it. There was 2 of them now, but the third one that showed up just appeared, like a flip of a switch. And I'm freaking out, I'm grabbing my phone, I'm like, I gotta get this, And by the time I got everything situated, they blinked out. One blinked out, that one shot off, and this one disappeared. So, but in the same direction, I captured this during the day. It was just a real bright thing, and it kept moving left to the right. You're just gonna see a bright light, but I'm taking my word. It was just moving back and forth for a little while, and then it finally just disappeared. But that there. I mean, it's too big to be a star. And this one I threw in because I have no clue what this is, and it's not related to anything we're talking about. Well, no, actually, it might be, but I don't know. The camera was stationed taller than me, and so over 6 foot. And this thing, whatever it is, looking down on the camera, I had no clue what it is. But it was taken, my camera was stationed or set on the back of my chicken coop, facing the back of my property. And it was my wife. But I don't know. There was nobody back there. I don't know what it was. I can't say, but I thought I'd throw it in there. So here's a cool story. One night, My wife and I are laying in bed. She's on her right side, I'm on my right side, and I'm awake. And then all of a sudden, you know, like you feel these things when this is going to happen, and I'm like, oh, great, you know, and I had that feeling, oh, great. Next thing I know, boom, sleep paralysis kicks in. Can't move, and I instantly think, grab for my gun, grab for my gun. I had my 9mm in my boot, my hiking boot on the left side of the bed. Grab the gun. As soon as I thought to grab the gun, we heard, thud, 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 really loud. And my wife jumped out of bed. She's like, what the expletive was that? You know? And I'm like, I don't know, I had an idea because a 9mm with a fully loaded clip in it, and a fully loaded clip in the holster is heavy. I had it shoved inside my hiking boot. If I would have picked that gun up, it would have taken the mountain movement, the hiking boot with it. So it would look like this. And it looks like that way because my dog chewed the laces off of it. But, so I get up, and the gun is on the other side of the bedroom. If it would have just fallen out of the boot, it would have, you know, the boot was not disturbed. It was still in the same spot. It wasn't tipped over. I mean, there was no way for this to have happened. But as soon as I thought to grab for that gun, boom, boom, boom. But when I woke up, as soon as I hit the sleep paralysis hit me, I'm like, they're hearing me, grab for the gun. As soon as I thought that, boom, boom, boom. And also, as soon as that happened, sleep paralysis stopped. And it never just stops. It fades off a little bit. You know, we don't know if you guys ever experienced it, but it doesn't just stop. And that time it did. So every time before or after one of these events, that creature that I saw in my backyard, the nightly events that happen to me sometimes, those sightings that happen in Jaffrey, some of the sightings that I've had over my house, and also when I've been on some really top paranormal shows or UFO shows, I talk about my theories, I share some of my photos, but mostly when I really get in depth about my theories and how these things work and how it all happens, this happens. That's above my house. And one time they circled twice. And I'm not a paranoid person. It's just what I do with my work is I only document facts, like how it happens. And I look for trends. That's what I look for. Like, I make observations, look for trends, and don't embellish, you know, and don't exaggerate. It only happens then. And the only other helicopters I ever see, which we do have in the warehouse, are medical helicopters, because there's a hospital not too far from our house. And so, I like this, because this is my end point, is it's absolutely 100% true. That's how all this stuff is working. They're all happening. We got the UFOs, we got the haunted houses, we got the Bigfoot creatures, they're all happening in these flat areas. There's a reason why they're all happening in this area. These areas all have water surrounding them. It's a manipulation of frequencies that's allowing it to happen. That's my strong opinion, over 30 years of work. And dealing with the negative life forms, I do it differently than what people are used to. I use a different technique because I realized a long time ago those techniques weren't working. So why aren't they working? Why do they work sometimes? Why do they normally don't work? So, and that's when I started to say, you know what, these things are attached to people, they're not homes, you know, they're not attached to your home, so why is that? And I started manipulating emotional, vibrational frequencies, which is a very real thing. A long time ago, I would have been like, that's weird stuff, but it's the only thing I could do, so that's what I come up with, and it can be no other thing. And if I was wrong, I've helped thousands of people throughout my life, and I don't have one fail. And I don't say that as a pat on my back. I got this information given to me when I was sick as a 10-year-old. And this thing that was there, I don't think it was a ghost of a person. I tie it more into the things that visit me at night. I think they want me doing this work because I think these things that instill fear in us individually, you know, as a society, as a whole, they're trying to keep us down spiritually. And I think these people are helping me to help them, or to helping me to stop that from happening. You know, yeah, right. So that's what drives me. And at one point I was doing five investigations a week. I don't do that anymore. Luckily, there's not the demand for that anymore either. So, but, you know, it's great, and I love doing this work. So, but I think we're at the end, and before we go, I would just like to tell you guys some more stuff. As we mentioned, I'm a regular guest co-host on the show, I'll be down there. We got a show coming out this coming weekend. Now, if you guys aren't aware, you can go to behindtheparanormal.com. He's got over 10 years of free podcasts that you can listen to. I'm on a bunch of them. We talk about all kinds of different stuff. And my regular website that I started back in like 99 or something, or 98, strugos.com, there's a little bit of information about me there, contact information. But that's my new YouTube channel. It's Exposing the Paranormal TV. Right now it's pretty much a podcast where I have a guy where I interviewed. I have one guy that I interviewed, but I'm going to start doing more. I have a lot of top name people coming up. I just locked down, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Derek Tyler. He wrote Alien Contact, The Unfortunate Truth, and which a lot of people find that controversial, but he has a lot of military patches that he put in his book, and people are like, oh, those are all fake. But I sent them to somebody that I'm related to, I won't say who, was up very high up, he's retired in the Air Force, and said, I can tell you for sure that 3 of those were legit. And so this Derek Tyler is really interesting. He's a best-selling author, but I just locked him down. Pretty much all those people that spoke at this event will be on my show. And but please look it up, subscribe. You know, I have cards that I put right there. You can grab there's some cards on behind the paranormal table out back. Grab them, go subscribe, please help me out. And I think you're really going to enjoy a lot of the interviews I have scheduled. And I want to thank you all for sticking around and hearing me from them up.